Chapter 461, Eat It. In fact, Kunwu has no effect on Zulong, and Chen is also well aware that all he wants to do is to divert Zulong's attention. As the saying goes, fighting grass to scare the snake, but now what Chen wants to do is precisely fight grass to scare the snake. Chen threw out the kunai in his hand, and then took out 2 kunai with special characteristics and held it in his hand. Hopefully it does, he muttered to himself. Chen Xiao ran forward and galloped towards the candle dragon, throwing out the characteristic kunai in his hand one by one. The result was obvious. Zulong flicked his tail gently, and Kuwu Bian fell to the ground. Good opportunity. Chen's eyes lit up. With strength under his feet, he flew towards the candle dragon. The 7th gate of the 8 gates of Dunjia is opened. Ah! Uchiha Chen was wrapped in red chakra, like a tailed beast coat. He saw blue veins all over his body, the whites of his eyes rolled up, and the eyes of a dead fish stared at the candle dragon. Day Tiger. Uchiha Chen's figure flashed for a while, his hands and feet were waving again and again, but in the blink of an eye, a huge white air bomb was formed around Chen's body. Under the continuous attack of Uchiha Chen, the huge high-pressure gas bomb gradually turned into an angry white tiger. Roar, White Tiger! Uchiha Chen roared, and the angry white tiger stared at the candle dragon with burning eyes, leapt under his feet, and swooped towards the candle dragon like a tiger descending the mountain. The mouth opened, and a deafening roar sounded. I saw that the white tiger took a deep breath, and the air around it kept flowing towards its mouth. Gradually form a high-pressure air compression bomb. Baihu took this extremely unstable air compression bomb directly to the candle dragon. Boom 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 boom. The sound of explosions sounded one after another, and after using the Day Tiger, Uchiha Chen looked at the candle dragon at the center of the explosion, panting slightly. You must know that after opening the 7 doors, even he can't bear it. What's more, this is still on the long river of time. If you can't get chakra's supply, it will be absorbed by the long river of time. After releasing the 8 gates Dunjia state, Chen put his hands on his knees and gasped for breath. This time, you should suffer a little. Uchiha Chen gasped. His Day Tiger is different from Kai's. Kai's Day Tiger is completely the power of taijutsu, and Chen's Day Tiger also adds a unique illusion and ninjutsu color to the taijutsu. This makes Chen need more energy when releasing the Day Tiger. Of course, the power is not comparable to Kai's Day Tiger. The dust settled, Zulong coughed twice, and swung its tail vigorously, sweeping away all the smoke. Oops! At this time, Chen just recovered and was about to bypass the candle dragon and walk towards the passage behind him. I didn't expect Zulong to recover so quickly, as if Chen himself had thrown himself into a trap and let Zulong catch him. Although Zulong was surprised, his subordinates showed no mercy. With a flick of his tail, he was about to roll up Chen Uchiha. Huh! Chen snorted coldly, raised one hand, and when the tail was about to sweep to him, the figure instantly disappeared in place, and the other person just pulled up the characteristic kunai that was inserted on the ground before. Feeling less than 1/3 of the chakra in the body, Chen was secretly surprised. You must know that he originally had at least 1/2 of chakra in his body. But after using the Flying Thunder God technique, he forcibly reduced the amount of chakra by 1/6, which is still the Flying Thunder God technique with little chakra energy consumption. Fortunately, he did not use the virtual ability. Otherwise, there is no guarantee that there will be a chakra battle in the future. This place is too weird. Not only can the release ninjutsu not be used, but even the chakra consumption of space ninjutsu has been greatly increased. Seeing the ugly expression on Chen's face, Zulong smiled strangely. Then Chen was horrified to find that he couldn't move. That's right. It is the inability of the whole person to act. However, he was still able to maintain full consciousness, but his actions were like slow motion 50 times slower. I saw Zulong swung its tail over and slapped him in the face. Boom! Chen was directly knocked to the ground by the sudden attack. Not only the movement of the body slowed down, but also the speed of chakra flow slowed down at least 50 times. With an excited expression, Zulong's tail wrapped around Chen's body again. He kept shrinking and pressing Chen. His mouth opened, and he gave a cruel smile. The saliva from the corner of his mouth dripped and landed on Chen's shoulder, making a chi-chi sound, which actually penetrated directly through Chen's clothes and corroded on Chen's shoulder. Chen groaned, enduring the double pain of being oppressed and corroded by his body. Chen squinted his eyes slightly, and the kaleidoscope writing wheel began to spin crazily. Ah ah ah. Chen's mouth let out a low roar like a roar, his eyes twirled frantically, leaving 2 lines of blood and tears in the end, making a bang sound. As if something was broken, Zulong's movements were slightly startled, and he even relaxed his oppression on Chen. Not bothering to look at his aching eyes again, Chen found that his body had finally returned to normal by taking advantage of this breathing time. However, at this moment, the chakra in his body is very little. A fierce light flashed in Chen's eyes, and he opened his mouth and bit the candle dragon's tail. Since you want to eat me, then I will eat you first. With this thought in mind, Chen bit the candle dragon's tail fiercely, but what he didn't expect was that the candle dragon's tail seemed to be like made of pure gold. His teeth couldn't bite at all. Chen struggled to pull out a hand, took Kobo and shoved it into Zulong's tail ruthlessly. The collision between the two actually caused a spark, which made Chen dumbfounded. When he picked Kobo up, he found that Kobo was shocked. The tip has been broken off. Since it has reached this level, Chen has no other way out. He carried the only little chakra in his body and attached it all to his teeth. Lei Dungxian's method will be reported. In fact, it is not a ninjutsu, but Chen continuously compresses the only remaining chakra in the body and converts it into Black Thunder attribute chakra attached to the teeth. I want to use the penetrating power of thunder and lightning to tear off the defense on the candle dragon's tail. When PFF'd, Shanfa Lei Dun quickly played a role, and after breaking the outermost scale, Chen bit into the flesh of the candle dragon. Ow! Howl! Torch Dragon, who was stimulated by Lei Dun, couldn't help but howl. His tail couldn't stop swaying, and Chen was thrown out with a flick. Holding the mentality that Qingshan will not relax, Chen hugged Zulong's tail when he was struggling, but he was thrown out by Zulong, but his mouth did not relax, and he forcibly tore off the candle. A piece of flesh on a dragon's tail. Chapter 462, Escape. Uchiha Chen bit off a large piece of flesh on Zulong's body in one bite. After being thrown off by Zulong, his throat itched, and he almost wanted to spit out a mouthful of old blood. At this time, he didn't care so much, and swallowed the blood abruptly. He didn't expect to swallow the flesh that he bit off from the candle dragon's tail, even the skin. How could it be? After biting off the flesh of the candle dragon's tail, Chen felt a burning pain in his mouth, and even a stench rushed to his brain. He was going to spit it out, but he didn't expect that when his mouth opened and closed, he swallowed it directly. The flesh and blood flowed from Chen's throat into the esophagus, and then into the stomach. Chen only felt a burning pain in the place where the flesh and blood passed, as if it had been corroded and burned by something unbearable. Feeling the pain, Chen immediately mobilized his own strength to separate the flesh and blood he ate by mistake from his body, but the result was in vain. The flesh and blood can be said to be absorbed and digested as soon as it enters Chen's stomach, and the energy contained in Zulong's flesh and blood constantly corrodes and burns Chen's stomach. Even with the self-healing ability of Jiwei and Mu Dun, they cannot resist the speed of this energy's corrosion and spread. You despicable ant! Zulong finally spoke after Chen ripped off a piece of meat from his tail. Just listening to his hoarse voice, he looked at Chen with a sinister look and said, I originally planned to give you a treat after extracting the fragments of time, but I didn't expect you to be so ignorant, and I'll take your soul out of eternity. Don't be superborn. As the ancestor witch of time, Zulong can only have the power of time and is qualified to use the power of time. If it is not someone he recognizes, then the candle dragon will follow the power of time to recover the time fragments, and then kill it. Die. Obviously, Chen's kaleidoscope writing wheel's own ability and Fuyu's ability both involve the rules of time, and what's more, Chen is trying to comprehend the laws of time in the long river of time. Isn't this courting death? You must know that time Cheng is Zulong's territory, stealing other people's skills without permission, and making a fortune on other people's territory. It would be strange if Zulong didn't cut him into 8 pieces. Sure enough, it's conscious. Chen's eyes flashed. Hee. Enduring the intense burning sensation in his abdomen, the pain of corrosion, a smile that was even uglier than crying appeared on Chen's face, and jokingly said to Zulong, "No, it really surprises me to think that there is such an existence in the world of Hokage, although I can't solve you now, but you don't want to get cheap on me." Chen took a step back, and behind him was the time channel that was blocked by the candle dragon's body. Chen deliberately caught Zulong in order to forcibly pass behind Zulong, but he did not disappoint Chen. When Zulong was throwing Feiken, he deliberately adjusted his posture, causing him to be thrown out by Zulong. Afterwards, he threw it directly behind the candle dragon. Chen, who was thrown away, is now only 1 step away from the time channel. Bastard, damn. Zulong hoarse his voice and looked at Chen Uchiha with cold eyes. His voice was originally like this, which was why he didn't like talking. But now it is because Uchiha Chen made an exception to speak. Now Zulong wants to tear Uchiha Chen into 8 pieces, take out his soul, swallow his whole body alive in front of him, and then burn his soul on the fire of time, forever. Superborn. With a sneer on Chen's face, he glanced at Zulong, but he did not dare to underestimate Zulong. Instead, he faced Zulong head-on and quickly stepped back, as he was about to enter the time channel. "Lowly ants, do you think you can escape?" Zulong's yin-chai voice recalled in Chen's ears. Suddenly, Chen was shocked. "The whole time is my domain, where do you think you can go?" Bastard. Chen resisted the pain in his chest and kicked out, but he didn't expect that the kick would be empty. You must know that although Chen has been restricted too much in this place, the speed of his body is not restricted, and he is still extremely fast, but even so, he is still kicking in the air. The realm of time is stagnant. The candle dragon stared at Uchiha Chen with fierce eyes, and his tail was about to pierce through him. Damn, Chenjia's eyes were about to split, and his face could no longer be calm, and he showed an anxious expression without concealment. He found that he was in a state where he couldn't move at all, only his thoughts didn't stagnate, and the whole person's movements seemed to be slowed down 50 times. He watched helplessly as the candle dragon's tail hit his lower abdomen. PFF'd. The tip of the tail pierced directly through Chen's lower abdomen. Wow! With a loud voice, Chen couldn't help after all, and a mouthful of blood with fragments of internal organs spurted out. At this time, Chen's eyes were turning frantically, and the 2 eternal kaleidoscope writing wheel eyes couldn't help leaving blood and tears, not only the chakra in his own body, but also the 10-tailed chakra sleeping in Chen's body. Carrot. Click, click. Chen stretched out his trembling hands to hold the candle dragon's tail. Although the speed was very slow, he couldn't dodge it, and he came very resolutely. I saw that he exerted a little force, and the whole person quickly flung back along the tail of the candle dragon. HMPH, wanting my life. It's not that easy. Zulong did not expect that Chen would be able to break through his time domain twice in a row and let him forcibly escape from his hands. Now that Chen has entered the time channel, according to reason, there is no way for the candle dragon to enter. Or the level of the candle dragon is too high, and entering it will cause the collapse of the time channel, which he cannot bear. Angrily, Zulong could only watch Chen slip away from his eyes, but he had no choice. HMPH, just wait. I don't believe you won't come back. Zulong's Yin Chi-Chi's voice spread along the time channel, all the way into Chen's ears. Sure enough. Is the bet right? At this time, Chen Kai was relieved and let go of the nervousness in his heart. This time, he bet was right, and Zulong couldn't catch up with him. However, he also paid a great price. Not only was his body severely injured, but the pupil power of the eternal kaleidoscope shaker was also temporarily degraded due to overuse. The current Chen can be said to be extremely weak. If Zulong persisted, maybe Chen would really explain it there. But since he is no longer chasing, Chen is temporarily safe. Chapter 463, Crossing. Chen sighed softly, but did not expect the injury that affected his body. A burst of severe pain hit, and his brows wrinkled. In the space channel, Chen Cheng endured the pain in his abdomen, which was like an overturned river, and took out a bottle of pulsation from the system space. He drank half of it and poured half into his lower abdomen, barely stopping the blood. The rest can only be repaired by Jiwei and Mu Dun's recovery ability. Although the pulsation is good, the effect is the same, and the effect of drinking a few more bottles is the same, and there is no difference. The reason why other people's injuries can be treated with a bottle of pulsation is because the injuries are not serious, and the injuries on Chen's body were caused by the existence of a higher level than the immortals of the six paths, and the mere pulsation cannot make Chen recover. When his feet stepped on the solid ground again, Chen Kai couldn't help but let out a long sigh. It's been a long time since I've been so embarrassed, it's really miserable. But it's finally figured out. But the next second he began to frown. The 10-tailed power in the body and the healing ability of Mu Dun have already begun to work. The two energies are constantly repairing the wounds of his body. If this is the only way, it would be the best, but Chen can clearly feel him. There is a force in his body that does not belong to him, even hindering the repair of his body, constantly corroding, destroying and burning his body. Chen closed his eyes and began to urge the power of Tentai and Mu Dun in his body to drive and devour it, but he did not expect that the Tentai and Mu Dun chakra would stop in place when they approached that power, and even showed fear. Constantly revolving around that force, not daring to approach at all. What's more, that power can devour Tentails and Mudden chakra, causing continuous damage to Chen. Chen frowned. He had nothing to do with this inexplicable power. He could only open the system and asked, "System, what is going on with me? The injury can't be healed, and the power of Tentai and Mu Dun is still being swallowed up. Now." "Ding," answered the host. "You devoured the flesh and blood of the candle dragon before. Because the level of the flesh and blood of the candle dragon is too high, the speed cannot be completely absorbed, so the power of the candle dragon has been constantly eroding the host's body." The system that answers every question always appears in a timely manner, and after listening to the answer from the system, Chen couldn't help but fall into contemplation. Candle dragon. Is that guy a candle dragon? It doesn't look like it at all. It looks like a ghost that is half human and half snake, just like a big snake's pocket. Ding! Zulong, also known as Zhu Juin. As long as its eyes are open, the long dark night becomes day. When its eyes are closed, the day turns back to night, so it is called the 12 Ancestral Witch. Among them, the Time Ancestor Witch controls the power of time, with a human face and a snake body, and the whole body is crimson red. If it is not because in the long river of time, you are not as big as the scales on the tail of others. Cut. Chen pouted his mouth lightly, reached out and pressed the corroded and burned area and said, "Now is not the time to talk about this. Is there any way you can remove this power? Otherwise, I will go on like this. There is no way to heal the injury at all." Quote. "No, the authority is insufficient to open higher level exchange items." Hey, what the hell? Hearing this sentence, Chen involuntarily opened the system exchange space to take a look, but after walking around, he found that sure enough, the original things in the exchange space have not changed, and the highest level is also, but it is the Eye of Reincarnation, the body of the fairy, the eternal kaleidoscope and the like. These things have long been owned. Can't you update the store automatically? I don't have the desire to buy these things. Chen couldn't help but complain. After the host enters the next world, the system will gradually open up all the exchange items in the Xiaochen world, and so on. When the host enters the Middle Thousand world, it will gradually open up all the items that can be exchanged in the Middle Thousand world. The candle dragon belongs to the Middle Thousand existences that are only involved in the world above, so nothing in the system is normal. Quote. Damn, isn't that unable to heal my injury? Chen Wei had a headache. If the injury continued, it would affect his state, and he didn't even know if the power of the candle dragon would further corrode. If it really corrodes further, things get serious. There are two methods. One is to forcefully absorb the time power of the candle dragon. The other is to seal the power of the candle dragon, but the second method is not desirable, and the host cannot do it at the current level of the host, it is recommended that the host drink one every day. The pulsation of the bottle, although it cannot be cured, it will not spread, and strive to realize the power of the candle dragon. Quote. Chen smiled wryly and shook his head, leaving it alone, letting this power play havoc in his body. In short, this power will not affect him for the time being, not to mention that the system has already given a solution, and sometimes this kind of thing can only be natural. But then, where is this place now? Chen raised his head and looked around a little blankly. As far as the eye can see, there is a vast desert on all sides. If there is no accident, Chen's location is probably in the territory of the Land of Wind. There was smoke everywhere, blood stains, mounds, and several corpses. Judging from the clothes and headgear, it was obvious that they were from Sand Ninja Village. It seems that there was a war in this place not long ago, and Sand Ninja's people were the defeated party, otherwise, no one would collect their bodies. Crouching down and twisting a pinch of sand, I sensed it carefully. Well, it was just refurbished, and the talents here haven't been gone for a long time. Chen's eyes narrowed. It was obvious that it was a time of war, and it was impossible for such a large-scale war to occur in a peaceful age. I just don't know who the other party is. Looking at, it seems that I have passed through the dragon veins like Naruto. From the current situation, it seems that it is still in a state of war, but I don't know what era it is. Chen stared into the distance with burning eyes. Someone was coming from that direction in his perception range, and Chen was just waiting for work, and by the way asked what era it was. Chapter 464, Obtaining Information. Come on, hurry up, the enemy is coming. Not far from Chen, a team of sand ninjas was anxiously setting up traps. Seeing their embarrassed appearance, it was obvious that they had just left the battlefield and were preparing to retreat to the rear. Although Chen didn't know why there were only so few of them, it didn't prevent him from stepping forward to grab them and question them. Since Chen's body has been affected by the power of the candle dragon, his strength has decreased to a certain extent, but it is still easy to kill the few sand ninja fish on the opposite side, but Chen's purpose is not to kill them all. With a movement, Chen Yi stepped into the void. At this moment, a sand ninja who was arranging the trap was shocked, and then the whole person collapsed softly to the ground. What's wrong with you, Yanshin-kun? Damn it, could it be that the previous injury was too severe? Seeing that he suddenly fell down, his companion couldn't help but put away the detonating talisman in his hand and ran over to help him up. But when his hand touched Yanshin's body, he couldn't help but froze for a moment, and collapsed to the ground as soft as Yanshin. Be careful, there's an ambush. The headed Jonin screamed in his heart, shouted at his only subordinate, jumped away instantly, took out Kunwu, and looked at the two who had collapsed on the ground. No matter how fast the Jonin reaction speed is, there is no way to drive the rhythm of his subordinates. After hearing his warning, one of his last subordinates did not have time to react when he saw a thorn erected under his feet, penetrating his head from the soles of his feet. The sand ninja gritted his teeth and looked at the place where his two subordinates fell to the ground. Although he could not see the enemy there, his intuition told him that the enemy came from behind the two. Bastard, come out for me. The two shuriken flew towards the back of the two Jinin who fell to the ground. Duh, the two shuriken passed through his two subordinates without hindrance and stuck on the sand. The reaction speed is very fast. Uchiha Chen chuckled, and then his figure appeared in the void. The previous clothes were completely destroyed in the battle with Zulong, so Chen had to take out spare clothes from the system space. I have to say that, just in case, Chen often prepares clothes in the system space, that is, in case of any battle, due to a negligence and not dodging the enemy's attack, the clothes will be damaged, so Chen will have it early. Preparation for this. After changing his clothes, Chen put on his black robe again and walked out of the space with a playful face. I didn't expect you to have two brushes, so you can guess my position. It's a pity that his reaction ability is too poor, and his strength is a little underestimated. In comparison, even Naruto 20 years later the reaction ability is also stronger than the guy in front of him. It has to be said that at this time, Sand Shinobi has begun to show their barrenness and scarcity of talents. Since the First Ninja World War, Sand Ninja Village has been in a state of making ends meet. Although there have been a bunch of people such as the Chio brothers and sisters, Samana, Luo Sha, etc., this does not cover up the gradual decline of talents in Sand Ninja Village. In the end, not even a single ninja will be left. Chen shook his head and sighed, stretched out his hand hidden in the black robe, and lightly touched the position where the joinin was. Not good. Seeing this, the Sand Ninja immediately jumped off the spot, and then took out the shuriken in his hand and shot at Chen Uchiha. Ding ding ding. Before the shuriken could fly into the range that could hurt Chen, it fell weakly to the ground. Bang! The position where the jonin stood before suddenly exploded, as if someone had used several detonating charms to detonate them together. Damn! That Sha Ren took out the scroll behind his back, released his proud puppet, and looked at Uchiha Chen angrily. Suddenly, he seemed to have discovered something. Seeing that there was no forehead guard on Chen's forehead, he thought for a moment and said to Chen, "Your Excellency is from Yan'an Village, I don't know why Your Excellency attacked us. Knowing that we are now a strategic alliance, if Your Excellency insists on going our own way, then I can only report it to the top of our Sand Ninja Village, and consider the cooperation between our two villages." Quote. As soon as Chen heard this, he was instantly happy. He didn't expect that this guy in front of him would regard him as a person from Yan'an Village after seeing that he had released a soil escape. Chen knew that this was because he didn't wear a forehead guard. Yi's ninjas regard forehead guards as more important, not mission requirements, and rarely take off forehead guards. Chen naturally didn't bother to explain to them that since he had already regarded himself as a member of the Rock Ninja Village, why would Chen pretend to be a member of the Rock Ninja Village? He came to this world mainly because of telepathy. Strange to say, originally there was still a feeling of heart palpitations over time, but since Chen came to this era, the feeling of heart palpitations disappeared, as if the crisis had been lifted. Now that the sense of urgency in his heart is gone, Na Chen can move freely and easily. If the age is determined, he doesn't mind stirring up the muddy waters of war even more. If you want to kill, you can kill. What can you do with your trash? Don't you think it was when your third generation of trash was still alive? Chen grinned, pretending to answer with disdain. In fact, he has already set up a lot of small traps in the words. He is confirming whether the 3 generations of Fengying are missing. If they are missing, then obviously this is the third battle. If not, then you can only make plans. Sure enough, the Sand Ninja suddenly burst into flames, controlled the puppet and rushed towards Chen, shouting, "Nonsense! Our cage must not have been killed. He must be waiting for an opportunity somewhere, and then he must lead us to swallow the fire." Country. As the strongest cage, their subordinates didn't want to believe that he would die so easily. Even if he had been missing for a long time, and even the higher-ups had released news, the ninjas at the bottom still didn't want to believe it. Hearing this, Chen has roughly understood the information he needs. It is indeed the period of the Third World War, so the next thing to do is much simpler. Chen looked at the jonin who was leading the team, with a malicious smile on his face, and said with a seal on his hands, "If that's the case, then there's no need to keep you." Too done too long bomb. Chapter 465, Solve the Sand Ninja. Chen's hands were imprinted, and the chakra in his body flowed along the meridians. A giant dragon suddenly rose from the soil at his feet. It roared at the Sand Ninja, and then spit out countless earth bombs from its mouth. However, the seal of this hour did not end, and I saw that he followed the end of the earth dragon bomb to the end of the way. Woo! Chen seal again, and his hands were like butterflies wearing flowers, turning over quickly. Earth escape double earth stone dragon technique. The earth dragon sprang from the ground, flew into the sky, and split into 2 roaring giant dragons in the sky. However, it was surprising that after one split, the size of the 2 earth dragons did not decrease at all, even faintly. The room is even bigger than before. The 2 earth dragons entangled with each other, opened their mouths at Sha Ren, spit out countless earth bullets in the air, then separated, and both rushed towards Sha Ren, their mouths wide open, as if they were about to swallow them. Seeing this, Sha-Ren did not show weakness, opened the scroll, and summoned a puppet beast again. I saw his hands and fingers danced frequently, and the two puppet beasts seemed to be alive in his hands, constantly firing earth bombs that hit Shishachin with hidden weapons. Then, in Chen Weiwei's somewhat surprised eyes, a puppet beast opened its chest, and shot out countless kunai carrying detonating talismans, forcibly blasting Chen's two earth dragons into clods. What other tricks are there? Just use them. Don't wait until you die and say that you have a trick that you haven't used. You won't be willing to die. Looked at Chen arrogantly and laughed loudly. Chen was speechless and even wanted to laugh. Is this sand ninja stupid? Obviously it was just resisting a ninjutsu attack, and it was so inflated. Or is this guy originally a fool? If you really want to get serious, the guy on the opposite side can't even take Chen's attack. If it's not to make the water more confusing, why is it necessary for Chen to lower the power of ninjutsu by a level? Is it too early to talk big? Chen smiled contemptuously, turned his hands inward, and made a series of incredible movements under Sand Ninja's eyelids. I saw that Chen turned his hands inwards, and directly turned around to form the seal, and the speed was not slow at all, and it was still a few points faster than before. The earth escape is beyond the earth flow. Chen patted his hands on the ground, and with the output of chakra, the position of Sha Ninja's feet suddenly changed and became extremely soft, even like a river of quicksand, constantly circulating and stirring, pushing Sha Ninja down continuously like a current. Fall. Damn, Sha-Ren gritted his teeth, because he was trapped in the earthen river. Even if his puppet was not cut off by Chen's chakra line, he would not be able to act like an arm like before, always swinging when he wanted to. The connection with the puppet was forcibly blocked when the finger was used. Sand-Ren felt very helpless. If he didn't escape from the territory of Tuliuda as soon as possible, then only death awaited him. There was no other way. One step jumped out of the coverage of the soil flow river. Chi. Chen's eyes flashed, and the last seal fell after seeing Sha-Ren escaped. Tuden Rock Pillar Prison. As soon as Sha Ninja settled down, earth pillars rose directly from the ground on all sides to directly imprison him. HMPH, you're done. Chen looked at him, the sarcasm on his face could not be concealed. After Sha Ninja was imprisoned by the rock pillar, Chen Hao calmed down and patted the dust that didn't exist on his body, trash. Saying that, he made a seal on his hands and looked at Sand Shinobi with contempt. Tuden Tulong Gun. Countless sharp soil thorns emerged from under the Sand Ninja's feet, constantly piercing and piercing through the Sand Ninja's body. Puff, puff. Sand Ninja's body was completely penetrated by earth thorns, but when Chen walked over, Sand Ninja's body, which was obviously dead, suddenly made a bang sound, and a cloud of mist covered his whereabouts. However, this could not be concealed from Chen, who has a Sharingan, and he smiled lightly. Is it a substitute technique? The corpse in the rock pillar prison has changed from that Sand Ninja to a puppet beast that has been punctured with many holes. It's kind of interesting. Chen looked at the scene of the crime where the puppet beast was left after using the double with great interest. Suddenly, Kuwu in his hand flicked behind him. Wind escape beast wave palm. Jingle. Feng Dun and Kunai collided, making a crisp sound. I don't know whether to live or die, but you still dare to come. Chen frowned, and simply stretched out his hand and patted the ground. The powerful force moved along the ground towards Sha-Ren, and when he came to Sha-Ren, he broke through the ground, and the strong airflow hit Sha-Ren. However, he had foresight and jumped away before the attack was in front of him, and at the same time made a seal with his hands. Wind and wind cut. Wind escape vacuum jade. Sand Ninja moved his hands together and released two wind escape ninjutsu at the same time, without any intention of using the remaining puppet. He had to admit that Chen was much stronger than him, and even the puppet beast didn't work for him at all, and, after the last battle, the hidden weapon he loaded in the puppet beast had long since been exhausted, and he had just escaped when he encountered Chen, and there was no time to reload it. You must know that the reason why the puppet technique is strong is that it is strong in the use of various hidden weapons and poisons. In the case of neither hidden weapons nor poisons, the puppet beast is just a target. Naive. Chen stood up with one hand, then stretched out one hand. Two spear technique. In Chen's hands, two-dun chakra kept compressing, and a dirt gun about 2 meters long gradually appeared in Chen's hands. Chen tightly held the dirt gun and narrowed his eyes to aim at Sand Ninja, who was still in the air. Swipe hard. With the momentum of thundering thousands of troops, the earth spear quickly rushed towards Sha Ninja, breaking through his wind cut, breaking through his vacuum jade, and a shot directly penetrated his chest. Plop. After being penetrated, the earth gun was castrated unabated, and Sand Ninja was unable to support his actions after being hit, fell from the air, and fell to the ground motionless. Chen glanced at Sha Ren, a gleam of light flashed in his eyes, and then said, "Boring, is this Sha Ren? It's really weak." After speaking, Chen turned around and left, not paying attention to whether Sand Ninja, who was penetrated by the earth gun, was dead or alive. After a long while, the Sha Ninja's hand trembled slightly, and then slowly supported his body. Must bring the information back to the village. Chapter 466, Encountering Konoha Ninja. I have to bring the information back to the village. The Sand Ninja struggled for a long time, and finally managed to barely support his body. Ha, 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 Sand Ninja breathed heavily, and with trembling hands, he couldn't help touching his ninja kit. Then, tremblingly, he took out the bandage and unknown medicine from his ninja bag. As a Sand Ninja, especially the puppet master among the Sand Ninjas, not only does he need to carry poison with him, he is the most cautious, but also carries antidote and some other medical supplies with him. This is also the helpless move of Sand Ninja Village, where medical ninjas are scarce. After all, as puppet masters and experts in poison use, they still have a relatively good understanding of pharmacology, so when medical ninjas are scarce, they can only be responsible for themselves and treat themselves. Sand Shinobi tore off his shirt and applied medicine to comfort himself. Fortunately, he was careless and was too confident in his own ninjutsu, so he didn't come to check whether he was really dead. It is precisely because of this that he was able to survive in the end. Really too strong. Sha Ninja, who was shaking and bandaged himself, thought of Chen's ninjutsu, couldn't help but shivered, and couldn't help but murmured, "That guy is really Yinian Village. When did such a powerful person appear in Iwa Ninja Village, and why didn't I even have the slightest impression before?" Quote. You must know that although Sand Shinobi and Iwa Shinobi are allies who fought together, Sand Shinobi still ruthlessly collects information on Iwa Shinobi, which includes the intelligence collection of the strong men in Iwa Shinobi Village, but in Sand Shinobi and Shinobi's mind, there was no more information about the young Iwanin. This made him unable to help but begin to doubt Chen's true identity, but while he was wrapping himself up and thinking about it, he dismissed the idea. After all, apart from Yan Ren, no one could bring out the Earth Dun to the fullest. Don't look at Chen, although the output of chakra has been weakened, but the power is still not to be underestimated. After bandaging the wound, he pulled hard, snapping the bandage and tying himself with a knot. With the help of the few chakras in his body, he reluctantly put away the puppet beast, and started rushing towards Sand Ninja's combat headquarters. He didn't forget that he was on the way to escape, and it was because of this that he chose to wrap himself up before going on the road. Otherwise, the blood in one place not only points the way to people, but also causes him to lose too much blood and die. It was obvious that he didn't want to die yet, and it was the first time he felt or turned out to be so happy after wandering between life and death. Sand Ninja's figure gradually became smaller, until it disappeared into the desert here. After a long while, Chen, who had disappeared, reappeared in place. He looked at the direction Sand Ninja was leaving, and a strange arc appeared at the corner of his mouth. This way, it should be able to muddy the water. Chen squinted his eyes and felt the air from different worlds. He didn't know why he always felt that something would happen in this world, as if his heart palpitations disappeared after he came to this era, which must be inseparable from this era. Relationship, or there is a mysterious power that is driving him to this era. Since there are a pair of invisible hands behind him, Chen can only choose to muddy the water and disrupt the plan of those hands, so that the real mastermind can be found out. Since I came here, what should I do? It's better to make the whole ninja world riot, and maybe some interesting things will happen. Chen Lai grinned, since he has decided to mess up the situation, except for the Sand Ninja Village with the exception of Iwa Ninja Village, the relationship between the other 3 ninja villages cannot be pulled down, and plans must be made as soon as possible. Wood escape wood clone technique. Chen separated into 2 wooden clones. One went to the battlefield between Konoha and Yunnan village in the country of soup, and the other went to the battlefield between Iwanan and Konoha in the country of grass. And he himself is going to go to the country of water in person after solving Sand Ninja, and drag Wu Ninja into the water. After coming out, the 2 wooden clones nodded towards Chen's body and then moved separately, heading towards the battlefield they needed to go to. Chen himself was standing still. He felt a very strong aura coming from the direction of the Sand Ninjas coming towards him. Obviously, according to what Chen heard before, it must be Wood. Yi came to hunt down their men. What Chen has to do is to ensure that he will not die before that Sand Ninja arrives at the base camp to convey the news that Chen brought him to the top of Sand Ninja, which means that Chen must resist this wave of pursuit from Konoha Ninja. Gradually, the breath got closer and closer, and Chen slowly opened his closed eyes. Come on. Looking at the white spiky-headed ninja wearing a Konoha ninja vest and a short knife in his back appearing in the desert in the distance, Chen's eyes were a little dazed. Kakashi. No, Chen thought for a moment and then rejected his guess. Kakashi is now only a mere Chunin kid. How could he catch up with one of the 3 elites from Shangnan and run around everywhere? Listen to according to Sand Shinobi's words, they chose to escape after seeing Konoha's ninja from a distance. Kakashi's words do not have such a strong deterrent effect. Another point is that this person does not wear a mask on his face, and Kakashi does not take off his mask all year round. This alone can determine that it is not Kakashi. Who is it? Chen squinted his eyes, the writing wheel in his eyes slowly turned, trying to see more clearly. After a few breaths, the ninja came to Chen and looked at the 3 dead men who fell to the ground. He subconsciously asked Chen, "Is this what you did?" "That's right." Chen nodded. After hearing Chen's accurate answer, he couldn't help frowning. He couldn't help but start to look up and down. When he saw Chen's pair of writing wheel eyes, his frown couldn't help but deepen a little, and he sighed with a sullen face. Authentic. From the Uchiha clan. Yes. Where's your forehead? He couldn't help but soften a little. No. What? Which army do you belong to? After hearing Chen's understatement that he did not have a forehead guard, his eyes changed instantly. Now is the time of war. In addition to the normal garrison force, almost all ninjas have been sent to the battlefield. In this case, no who can guarantee that he knows everyone, so the forehead guard becomes the easiest identification proof. No matter who, he will not easily lose the forehead guard, or even say the words without the forehead guard, even if Chen has a round eye, nor is it an excuse for him to lose his forehead guard. Chapter 467, Hitaki Shigeru. Who are you, that team, who is your captain? The Konoha ninja's tone was cold, and his eyes gradually became colder when he looked at Chen. However, Chen did not answer him, but continued to watch him silently. This look, this dress, and this hair. How do you look like? But unfortunately I don't wear a mask. Could it be that I have traveled to the world 20 years later? Chen couldn't help thinking. What are you mumbling about? I asked you, didn't you hear it? The Konoha ninja's face became colder and colder, and his eyes gradually became unkind when he looked at Chen. Very arrogant, unable to get along with other people in the village, that ninja was able to wait so long with a calm heart is already considered very good. It's a time of war. Any ninja who doesn't wear this village's forehead will be regarded as an enemy or a spy. I doubt your identity now. Although it is said that there has been no leakage of the Uchiha family's writing wheel so far, This does not mean that their writing wheel is foolproof, and there is nothing that will not happen on the battlefield. If one or two members of the Uchiha family die, no one will know if they lose a pair of eyes. What's more, if this guy is Konoha, he should have recognized himself, but he has not made any exaggerated reaction until now. It's not that he is boasting, anyway, his name is also an existence that can make the enemy feel fearful, and it is impossible to be so anonymous. It was because of this that he began to doubt Kichin's true identity. Haha, Chen shook his head, nodded and admitted, I am indeed a member of the Uchiha clan. Then please come with me, I need to confirm your identity. I'm not interested, Chen pouted. He didn't care about the Konoha ninja's guess at all, even if the guy in front of him was strong in Chen's perception, so what? If it is not the Chen of this era, he will not be burdened at all. The ninja didn't wrinkle when he heard the words, and said coldly, it seems that I can only force you to take away, just with your pair of writing wheel eyes, whether you are a member of the Uchiha clan or not, I can't let you go. Seeing that the Konoha ninja seemed to have a tendency to do it, Chen smiled lightly and said with interest, oh. Do you want to do it? Interesting. It happens that I am also very interested in your identity. For the sake of saying that, there is naturally no need to continue talking nonsense. The ruthlessness in the ninja's eyes flashed away, and he pulled out the short knife behind his back and came towards Chen. The dance of the three suns and moons of Konoha Ryu sword art. Quick, so quick. In Chen's eyes, it was as if three men with knives attacked him from three different positions, the upper, middle and lower positions. No matter which direction Chen was hiding in, he would be attacked by him. What's more, his speed was so fast that Lien Chen's writing wheel eyes were vaguely vague. Chen's heart was startled, and he quickly backed away. He is not in the best state now, and it is inevitable that he will be negligent when fighting. At this moment, the Konoha ninja's eyes were cold for a while. After seeing that Chen escaped his three-sun-moon dance, he had a brief stagnation, and then his blade was covered with a thick layer of white light. At this time, he drew back, put the knife that exuded a rich white light in front of his waist, narrowed his eyes, and attacked before Chen had time to react. The Konoha swordsmanship chases teeth. Chen can clearly feel the shocking sword intent and the strong killing intent emanating from the man opposite him. He knew that the opponent's attack was not easy to dodge, so he put his hands together, and at the moment when the Konoha ninja's knife cut his throat, he used a substitute technique to avoid his attack. This way of attacking, Chen frowned, feeling as if he had heard of it from somewhere, and suddenly his expression tightened, looking at the outline that was 80% similar to Hitaki Kakashi and said solemnly, Konoha Baya Hitaki Mao Shuo. The man didn't answer, but his grip on the knife became tighter, and his killing intent towards Chen became stronger. Now there is no need to guess, Hagi Shigeru can be sure that the guy in front of him is not a Konoha person. Since this is the case, the possibility of being merciful and catching the life no longer exists, then Hitaki Shigeru can directly kill. After all, a dead person is more obedient than a living person. Konoha Onbi has a special method to obtain important information from dead people's heads, so there is no need to worry about intelligence issues at all. More importantly, although Hitaki Shigeru is not very fond of the Uchiha family, he also knows the writing wheel eyes cannot be leaked. As a member of Konoha, he is obliged to recycle the writing wheel. However, at this time, Chen's heart had already set off 1,000 waves. Hitaki Shigeru, the legendary Konoha White Fang, a man who even Konoha Sannin has to fear 3 points. Hitaki Kakashi's father, a generation of swordsman masters. It can be said that his swordsmanship is close to the realm of Tao. In Hokages in the world, no one has achieved higher sword skills than him. In the Systems Points store, the white-tooth saber technique was second only to the Eye of Samsara, the eternal kaleidoscope, and the existence of the immortal body, and its 500,000 points once made Chen Wang discouraged. However, as early as the Second Ninja World War, Hagi Shigeru failed the mission by covering the retreat of his teammates, and committed suicide in the village's public opinion. How could he still be alive? Shouldn't it be? Is it still World War II? Tatsuya murmured to himself, but he didn't dare to shift his eyes from Shigeru Hagi for a moment. Even if Chen did not come from that era, he also understood that Konoha Baya should not be underestimated. Hatake Shigeru's face was cold, and after Chen escaped his pursuit, the sword intent emanating from him became even stronger. As for his sword, when the cold front comes out of its sheath, it will definitely drink blood and return. Hatake Shigeru's sword is a murderous sword, and his swordsmanship is also a murderous swordsmanship, but his swordsmanship has always been sharp-edged swordsmanship. According to common sense, as an assassin's sword intent, he should hide his edge like a firefly, but Hatake Shigeru's sword intent is like a bright moon, and he doesn't care whether he will reveal his whereabouts. Chen only felt one word about White Fang's knife: hurry up. Soon. Very fast. Even if you haven't seen clearly how he draws the knife, no one thought of its speed and power before the knife was unsheathed. In the whole world, no one can find anyone whose swordsmanship can be faster and stronger than him. Even so, Chenya still wanted to stop Konoha Whiteya from moving forward. He couldn't let his plans be interrupted by Hatake Shigeru. Now that he has come to this world, he will make this muddy water even more confusing. Chen smiled at Baya, but he didn't take out his streaming star meteorite knife. He never used knife technique as an important means of attack, and there was no need to show it to shame. Taking out the Fei Lei Shen Kunai with a characteristic from the system space, Chen's eyes have not changed, and now he can no longer think about why Konoha Baya is not dead. The important thing is how to drag him to this place. The Konoha swordsmanship chases teeth. Hatake Shigeru repeated his old tricks, but this time the speed was obviously much faster than before. Obviously, after White Fang stopped showing mercy, both his attitude and his sword became more threatening. Jingle. Chen erected his kunai and pressed the tip of White Fang's knife a second before it was about to pierce his body. Crack. The blade of White Fang collided with the characteristic kunai, and a dazzling spark flashed. At this moment, a gleam of light flashed in Hatake Shigeru's eyes, and he saw that he formed a seal with one hand. The chakra surged in his body, and under Chen's eyelids, a manic thunder-type chakra was condensed. Chapter 468, Killing Intent. Konoha Saber Technique Thunder Fang. Hatake Shigeru's body was covered with thunder attribute chakra, just like the chakra coat of Yunnan village at the beginning, along Hatake Shigeru's arm all the way to the blade of White Fang, and in an instant, the blade of White Fang was covered with cloth full of beating manic thunderbolts. Konoha's swordsmanship flow. The blade of White Fang full of thunder attribute chakra stabbed in front of Chen, then slanted away at a strange angle, staggered near Chen's neck, instantly approached Chen's neck, and slammed back. I have to say that Hagi Shigeru is a genius in swordsmanship. Originally, the Hagi family was one of the samurai families in the old era. Since joining Konoha, their family has begun to transform into ninjas. However, there is a special case. That was Hatake Shigeru. After reading the swordsmanship classics collected by the family, Hatake Shigeru started to collect other swordsmanship classics from various aspects. When he had no books to read, he began to practice the sword. Although it is a bit exaggerated to say that the 5-day practice of sword intent is not far from the same. After integrating various samurai swordsmanship, Hatake Shigeru recreated his own swordsmanship, Konoha-style swordsmanship White Fang. White Fang, who was able to comprehend higher sword skills from Suban and other secret skills, was not only in terms of strength and speed but also in terms of sword intent. Hatake Shigeru was no worse than those samurai of the old era in terms of skills. It's just that no one has ever been able to force White Fang to display his superb sword skills, often encountering an enemy, and all it takes is a single sword. The sword is not sheathed and the head is already on the ground. But now, Chen is fortunate to be able to experience the superb swordsmanship from Konoha Baya. This was something he hadn't thought of. When the blade of White Fang was about to tear his neck, Chen subconsciously fled into the void. White Fang's knife, following Chen's phantom, went all the way down, and fluttered in the air. Hatake Shigeru looked at Chen with a surprised look on his face. He remembered clearly just now that after the two daggers collided with Kuwu, White Fang used his strength to pierce Chen's neck from his oblique position, and he could be shot by him. He reacted in time to dodge, but after that, the action of pulling back White Fang was inevitable. In the end, I didn't expect that this knife went down as if it was cutting through the air, and there was no focus at all, so that Hatake Shigeru almost didn't use too much force and there was a flaw. After missing a hit, Hatake Shigeru immediately pulled back, and the speed was very fast. Even Chen couldn't do it if he wanted to take the opportunity to sneak attack. You must know that blurring takes time, not only to enter the blurred state, but also to get out of the blurred state. Although it is only a short blink of an eye, in the eyes of experts like Hatake Shigeru this was enough to distance him from Chen. During the third battle, Konoha had two very good people in the instant body. One was Golden Flashing Wave Fung Minato, the other was Shushui Uchiha Shisui. The two people's accomplishments in the instant body can be said it is the pinnacle of excellence, but no one knows that Hatake Shigeru's instant body is more powerful. You must know that the enemy only saw a flash of white light and died on the battlefield. It was just that White Fang's swordsmanship was too sharp, which overshadowed his accomplishments in the instant body technique. I'm almost on your way. Chen saw that Hagi Shigeru had already retreated, and he did not immediately come out of the emptiness after the sneak attack. Chen twisted his neck and looked at Hagi Shigeru and couldn't help sighing. Said, Konoha Baya is indeed Muyabaya. You are the first person who pushed me to this point. Hatake Shigeru tightened his brows. Is it an illusion? He put his hands together and shouted, Resolve. The movement of chakra in his body suddenly became chaotic, and he wanted to use this to unlock the illusion performed by Chen. However, it's useless. Hagi Shigeru, who found that there was no change in the slightest, was surprised, and tried to throw a shuriken from Chouchen, and the shuriken passed through Chen's body without any accident, leaving no trace behind. Mark of. So, who are you? You shouldn't be an unknown person. Report your name. Hatake Shigeru's face sank, although he didn't know what kind of ninjutsu Chen used, but one of them he probably understands the principle. It is nothing more than placing himself in another space with the help of space ninjutsu, so this false effect of the phantom is created. Some of them Konoha are also proficient in time and space ninjutsu. Sashiroya is not surprised by the appearance of time and space ninjutsu. He is just surprised that this person is so unfamiliar and so young. Hatake Shigeru Saku compares the Anbu of various countries. It is very intriguing to find that there is no one whose characteristics are similar to Chen's. You must know that in the world of Naruto, the most unlikely thing is that an unwarranted powerhouse will appear out of thin air. Whether it is an elite Junin or a genin who has just graduated from ninja school, all basic information needs to be registered, and among them some up-and-coming ninjas will be on other countries' Anbu assassination lists. Especially for a young ninja like Tatsuya, as long as he appears on the battlefield, there will be no loss of information there. How Tatsuya can hide this from all the intelligence organization personnel is very difficult to understand. He has already decided that after killing Chen, he must take Chen's head back and let Anbu investigate. Which organization does Chen belong to? How many people have the same strength as Chen? As Konoha's Anbu minister, Hagi Shigeru has the power to make these decisions. Me, Chen laughed self-deprecatingly, looking at Hatake Shigeru with a playful look in his eyes. Do you think I'll tell you? Hatake Shigeru retracted the sword and looked at Uchiha Chen with a look of disdain. I see, I probably understand. Sora has a strong strength but no matching heart. You don't deserve to let me know yours name. The smile on Uchiha Chen's face suddenly stiffened. What did you say? A strong person should have the temperament and pride of a strong person. A guy like you who dares not reveal his name, but he is just a clown who has an empty body but does not match his inner strength. In short, you don't deserve to have such a powerful strength at all. Interesting. Konoha's white fangs. I have to say, you really made me feel bad. Now the smile on Tatsuya's face has long since disappeared. He looked at Hatake Shigeru blankly. His tone there was an endless coldness in it, and a huge killing intent burst out from Chen's body, rushing frantically towards Hatake Shigeru like a tide, as if this killing intent could tear the flag apart in the next second. Mu Mosaku. Chapter 469, Confrontation. Chen looked blankly at Hatake Shigeru. His whole body suddenly burst out, and endless killing intent rushed towards Hatake Shigeru, as if he would be torn apart in the next second. HMPH. Hatake Shigeru bowed his legs slightly, and crossed his hands in front of him to resist this endless cold-killing intent, then looked at Chen Uchiha indifferently and said, "There is a lot of strength in the sky. You are not a strong person at all, you do not have the heart of a strong person, you do not have the courage to take responsibility for your own strength. No matter how strong you are always a weak person, and you do not deserve the respect of the strong." Uchiha Chen's aura was unexpectedly powerful, and even if Shigeru Hatake resisted it with all his strength, there was no way to completely resist this coercive force. In the end, Hatake Shigeru could not help but step back step by step, but he never bent his knees and surrendered to Chen Uchiha. "It's funny, why do I want to win the respect of the strong, and who are those strong? Or are the strong people you are talking about a guy like you who can't even stand?" Uchiha Chen laughed, his face the sarcasm is getting stronger. Hagi Shigeru's breath was stagnant. Indeed, if Hagi Shigeru said such words in front of other people, there would be no problem at all, but in front of Tatsu, especially in front of such a powerful Tatsu, his words were not at all. What does it mean? Even in front of Chen who doesn't have the heart of the strong, he is still weak. Just kidding, what about the heart of the strong? A guy who can't even resist his aura, what qualifications does he have to teach him? Although Chen was unable to exert his full strength due to the injury, his aura was different. A person's aura would not become stronger or weaker just because the person was injured or not. So even if Chen was injured, his aura would still not be affected, and it even became stronger and stronger as his emotions became more intense. Although Hatake Shigeru is someone Tatsu admires more, even though he doesn't know why Hatake Shigeru still hasn't died, this doesn't prevent Tatsu from attacking him, not to mention this guy in front of him has really made him feel accurate. Chen's figure gradually emerged from the blur, stepping on the thick soil. Chen picked up the kunai in his hand, and walked towards Hatake Shigeru step by step. When Chen walked in front of Hatake Shigeru, he showed a cruel smile, looked down at Hatake Shigeru, who was still holding his arms crossed against Chen's coercion, and said, "I don't care what kind of strong heart you have or not. I only know that you, a strong man, with the heart of a strong man, are going to die here today, or were you killed here alive by the weaklings you despise." Saying that, Chen Yang raised the trait of kunai in his hand, and stabbed Shigeru Hatake fiercely. Good chance. Hatake Shigeru, who had been holding back Chen's coercion with his arms crossed, flashed in his eyes, and took the opportunity to take action. The blade of white fang on his back was pulled out, his figure flashed again and again, his aura was greatly exalted, and all the chakras in his body were stimulated. Chakra followed his body and passed from his hands to the short knife, shining brightly. Bai Guang's short knife instantly became sharper under the blessing of chakra, and it was also contaminated with more manic thunder attributes. With his feet on the ground, with the help of his slightly bent knees, he suddenly lowered his head, squatted down, and slammed towards Chen. Kanahato technique White Fang. Fast, fast, very fast. It can be said that if it weren't for Tatsuya, maybe even Hatake Shigeru would not be able to see exactly how the sword was fired. In the blink of an eye, Hatake Shigeru has already made so many movements, which are completely completed in the blink of an eye. If it was someone else, it might not be too late to make them in this short period of time. The invasion of dodging, even they will not even have a chance to react. Chen's expression remained the same, facing Hatake Shigeru's ultimate move. It would be a lie to say that he didn't pay attention. In fact, Chen Qin was very cautious, but he was not afraid. Chen's eyes did not reveal a hint of timidity. He had said before that even though he was cautious, he did not show any signs of fear. I saw Chen's writing wheel eyes slowly began to turn, although it did not transform into a kaleidoscope, but the eyes of Sengoyu were enough for him to predict what Hatake Shigeru would do next. It should be known that the abilities contained in the original Shaker include seeing through, copying, and rebounding illusions. What Chen needs at this time is only the most basic ability to see through the wheel. Even if Sango Yuxuanyan couldn't keep up with Hatake Shigeru's speed, it still allowed Chen to take a breather. Chen's 3-go jade writing wheel eyes turned frantically, and it seemed that they were about to be connected to become a real kaleidoscope writing wheel eye, but it was just a little bit. The 3-go jade were not connected together, but that was enough. Hatake Shigeru's movements gradually slowed down in Tatsu's eyes. At this critical moment, Chen threw out the characteristic kunai in his hand, tilted his head to the side, and stretched out his left hand to slightly pin Hatake Shigeru. The hand holding the knife stopped him from moving forward, although it was only for the blink of an eye. However, this blink of an eye was enough for Chen. I saw Chen smile at Hatake Shigeru with a cruel expression on his face. Disappeared under the nose of Hatake Shigeru. Clap. Chen's figure instantly disappeared in front of Hatake Shigeru, and appeared behind him like a ghost. It was as if his position from start to finish was behind Hatake Shigeru. Chen stretched out his hand to hold kunai, who was still moving into the distance, and turned around to look at Shigeru Hatake, who was still in the throes of castration, but he did not fall into the trap. So where is your good chance? Chen hooked one finger on the ring of kunai, and spread out his hands at Hatake Shigeru with a playful smile. When Hatake Shigeru finally stopped, he turned his head and looked at Uchiha Chen in shock. What happened before was unbelievable. This is Chapter 470, Confrontation with White Fang. Hatake Shigeru looked at Uchiha Chen with shocked eyes, as if he saw something incredible. This is Flying Thor, he murmured, and opened his mouth with difficulty and said word by word. However, at this moment, a shock wave had already set off in his heart. You must know that the technique of Flying Thunder God is the space-time ninjutsu invented by them, the second generation of Hokage, Tobirama Konoha. It has always been a secret technique of Konoha, not only because of its powerful power, but also because of learning this ninjutsu the time, energy and talent required are beyond the reach of ordinary people. As everyone knows, since the death of the second Hokage Senju Tobirama, in the entire Konoha, Minato has been able to successfully learn this time-space ninjutsu in the past few decades. Zeus Baramu only played the name of Konoha's Yellow Flash at the beginning of the Third Ninja War. However, today Hagi Shigeru saw the appearance of the Flying Thunder God again in a person suspected of Uchiha clan. At first, he didn't react when he saw Chen's characteristic kunai. This dazzling Flying Thunder God technique only later shocked Hatake Shigeru. What, are you surprised? Chen's face showed a half-smile expression. He played with the trait kunai in his hand, and played with Hagi Shigeru. How did you learn this ninjutsu? Hatake Shigeru looked serious. He stood up slowly, the blade of white fang across his chest in a defensive posture. He originally thought it was a small matter, but now Hagi Shigeru had to treat it as an important matter. At 2 o'clock, the Flying Thunder God's technique and Shaker's eyes both proved that the information of their Konoha village or the secrets of their Konoha village had been leaked. As the minister of Konoha Anbu, no matter what, the ultimate responsibility for this matter will rest on him. What he has to do now is to learn about the situation of the spies in the village as soon as possible. During the war, a spy may cause important information leaked. Only by clearing all the spies one by one can the security of the rear area be ensured. How did I learn it? Chen asked back, then pointed to his own eyes, and said with a cold expression, there is no ninjutsu in the world that these eyes cannot replicate. If there are, then two double. Quote. Of course Hagi Shigeru would not listen to this kind of nonsense. If the writing wheel eye could even replicate the technique of Flying Thunder God, then the Uchiha clan would have their tails raised long ago. He snorted coldly, stopped talking, pulled out the scabbard behind his back and put it on his waist, and then slowly put the blade of white fang in the scabbard. Hatake Shigeru slowly closed his eyes, and gradually his aura began to undergo a qualitative change. Originally in a defensive state, he was struggling to resist Chen's aura, but now his aura is like an unsheathed sword. Hard-edged. Hatake Shigeru, who was originally at a disadvantage in the duel of momentum, was like a sharp sword, and with the momentum of destroying the dead, he forcibly broke a gap between Uchiha Chen's momentum and oppression. It was this gap. Hatake Shigeru's sharp sword. The general aura is close to Uchiha Chen. It's now. After Hatake Shigeru's momentum penetrated the high pressure of Uchiha Chen, he suddenly opened his eyes. White tooth knife technique instant. He moved, very fast. How fast? I don't know, and Chen doesn't know either. Maybe he didn't use the knife, or he already made the knife, but in fact he didn't use the knife now. After he came back to his senses, Hatake Shigeru had already withdrawn behind him, and a faint bloodstain appeared on Chen's neck, which then expanded, and a blood sword sputtered out from Chen's neck. PFF'd. After a long time, I heard a hurt voice coming from Chen's neck. Good knife. Chen couldn't help sighing. His right hand stroked his neck, a green light emerged from Chen's hand, and the wood attribute chakra was treating Chen's wound. At the same time, the 10-tailed chakra it is also constantly repairing Chen's body from within. At his realm, ordinary attacks can no longer work on him. Unless it is an immortal technique or crushes his heart, any attack will be ineffective against Chen. Of course, this does not include damage from a higher level, such as the Candle Dragon. In just a few breaths, Chen's wound disappeared, as if it had never happened at all. Your sword drawing technique is the fastest and strongest I've ever seen. Chen turned around and looked at Shigeru Hatake with a blank expression, as expected of Konoha Shirogane. During World War II, it was able to deter a ninja village. Existence. Chen shook his head and clenched the trait in his hand. Kunai, however, this level of attack is useless to me. No matter how many times you come, it's useless. It's a pity that this kind of high-intensity sword draw is useless. I believe you won't use it a few times. How much chakra do you have now? Chen's words were full of provocation. Chen was very angry that Hatake Mosaku could hurt him. Although his opponent was Konoha Shirogane Hatake, this kind of injury still made him feel ashamed. The evil spirit in the desert seems to be stronger than before. Tatsuya's hands were at the hem, and the special kunai was tightly squeezed in his hands, and he slowly walked in front of Hatake Shigeru. The road is very long, and in this desert filled with yellow sand, I don't know where the end is. However, the road is also very short, and the distance between the two is only a few dozen steps away. Chen walked towards Hatake Shigeru step by step, his whole body burst out with aura, and an even more domineering anger came from Chen's body. The wind has blown, rolling up the yellow sand in the sky, and the atmosphere in the desert seems to be more tense than before. Chen Yi flicked his hand, and the trait of kunai was released from his hand, and walked towards Hatake Shigeru at a fast speed. At this time, Uchiha Tatsuya had a murderous look in his eyes, and the world seemed to be influenced by Tatsuya, full of bleak and chilling meaning, as if he was mourning for the impending death of Hatake Shigeru. Kunai blinked, the figure disappeared, and when Tatsuya appeared in the next second, he was already standing face to face with Hatake Shigeru. Hatake Shigeru could even clearly see the subtle lines on Tatsuya's face. White Fang held the knife behind his back, his left hand against his right hand, and both hands against his chest. The body of the knife spread out towards Uchiha Chen, but his eyes did not dare to look at Uchiha Chen's eyes. Chapter 471. Reinforcement of Konoha. As the minister of Konoha Anbu, Hatake Shigeru clearly knows that the power of Sengoyu's writing wheel is not only about seeing through and copying, but also because it can make the enemy fall into illusion without knowing it. If there are no teammates, it is easy to die in the hands of the Uchiha family one-on-one. Although I don't know if Chen is a member of the Uchiha clan, but he has a writing wheel eye, so he has to defend his illusion. Hatake Shigeru's eyes never left Uchiha Chen's hands, because he knew that no matter what ninjutsu, no matter what move, the first thing to move would always be these terrifying hands. At this moment, Uchiha Chen seems to have changed a person. Although he is still so expressionless and taciturn, the monstrous weather that bursts out of him at this moment can't help but surprise Hatake Shigeru. Suddenly, Chen He moved. When Hatake Shigeru was slightly lost, Chen's hands were like butterflies wearing flowers, and his fingers moved together. The kunai in his hands was like the tip of a knife dancing on the ice. Hatake Shigeru's dazzling operation. The characteristic kunai in Chen's hand kept flashing, and the sword of Hatake Shigeru kept parrying. As the saying goes, how can there be an airtight defense in the world? Under the continuous offensive of Chen, Hatake Shigeru's resistance has gradually slowed down. Gradually, bruises and bruises began to appear on his body, all of which were accidentally injured by Chen taking advantage of the emptiness. Although Chen's swordsmanship is indeed not as strong as Hatake Shigeru, but 1 inch is shorter and 1 inch more dangerous. Under the staggered face-to-face golden stone, Hatake Shigeru will inevitably make mistakes. Unlike Chen, he not only has wood chakra but also 10 tails. Give him power. As an ordinary person, Shigeru Hagi has been able to hold on for so long in the hands of Tatsu, who is furious. Master Maoshuo, get out of the way. Meat bomb chariot. When Hatake Shigeru was stretched thin and was about to be defeated in the hands of Uchiha Tatsuya, a loud cry came from behind him. Hagi Shigeru was overjoyed, and he used all his strength to ward off Uchiha Tatsu's attack. Then he dodged to the side, gasping for breath. But he said that Chen Zheng was fighting vigorously, and in his eyes there were only kunai, Hatake Shigeru's sword, and Hatake Shigeru. Just as he skillfully swung the sword, he didn't expect that Hatake Shigeru would actually dodge and hide to the side. Just as he was in a trance, he saw a huge shadow appear under his feet. Looking up, a giant spherical object spinning at a high speed was rushing towards him condescendingly. Chen subconsciously stretched out his characteristic kunai, and crossed his hands on his head in a defensive posture to resist the attack from directly above. Ninjutsu heart-turning art. For such a moment, Chen felt himself stunned, as if he saw something, but only for such a moment. The 10-tailed chakra in the body began to exert force, forcibly expelling the force that was trying to control him. Ninjutsu shadow imitation. PFF'd. Hai-yi. At the moment when Nara Shikahisa's shadow imitation technique succeeded, Yamanaka Kaiichi, who was beside him, suddenly spurted out a mouthful of blood, which startled Nara Shikahisa, who was maintaining the shadow imitation technique, and was about to pretend to say that the imitation was successful. He subconsciously shouted, and almost didn't release the shadow imitation technique in his hand. It's okay. Yamanaka Hai-yi wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, shook his head at Nara Shikahisa to show that he was not injured, then looked at Chen Uchiha with a horrified look and said, "Be careful. I cast a secret technique on him." When he was there, he could clearly feel that there was a terrifying existence in his body, even more terrifying than a tailed beast. Quote. Nara Shikaku took a deep breath and subconsciously increased the output of chakra. He looked at Hatake Shigeru and said, "Master Shigeru, are you all right?" Hatake Shigeru shook his head and withdrew to the two of them together with Akito Dingza, who had regained his original figure, and said to Nara Shikaku, "I don't mind, but how did you come here? You shouldn't be in the battlefield of Urin village. Up there, why did you come here all of a sudden?" Nara Shikahisa carefully glanced at Uchiha Chen, and said to Hatake Shigeru, "The battle situation in Urin village has temporarily stabilized, and the 3 generations of Hokage have now personally entered the battlefield in Urin village. If there is an accident, they should be the first to end the battle. Besides, isn't there Minato there? What are you worried about? It's you. Why did you get into trouble with the Uchiha clan, and you're still so embarrassed?" Hatake Shigeru took a deep breath, took out 2 military ration pills from the ninja bag, swallowed them, and looked at Uchiha Chen, who was temporarily controlled by the shadow imitation technique, with a serious face. "That guy, it's very possible it's not a member of the Uchiha family, and his writing wheel is probably plundered from a certain Uchiha family member, and this guy can actually use the technique of Flying Thunder God." "What? How is it possible? That technique?" All 3 of them had expressions of disbelief on their faces, and then Shikuku looked at Hatake Shigeru with a serious expression he had never seen before and said solemnly, "Lord Shigeru, you are sure you're not mistaken, that's really the God of Thunder. Technique. You must know that the significance of the Flying Thunder God in Konoha is not just as simple as the ninjutsu invented by the second Hokage Senju Tobarama. The Flying Thunder God's jutsu, which was collected in the Book of Seals, has only been Minato Namikaze after so many years. If he can learn it, when he hears that there are still people who do, Shikaku naturally thinks that it is Hagi Shigeru who misreads it. However, after seeing Hatake Shigeru earnestly nodding and answering, Shikahisa couldn't help taking a breath in the end. Even he subconsciously looked in the direction of Uchiha Chen, and thought that Uchiha Chen would be the transformation of Nika's Minato. We must take him back to the village and let Konoha Anbu's torture team interrogate all the information. Just when the four of them were discussing how to deal with Uchiha Tatsuhisa, who had been bound, Nara Shikahisa saw that Uchiha Tatsuhisa's imprisoned hands began to gradually exert force, and slowly Nara Shikahisa's shadow imitation technique was about to fail. Stopped, Nara Shikahisa's originally folded hands began to gradually spread out under the constant force of Uchiha Chen. What? Nara Shikaku's eyes widened, he looked at Chen Uchiha in surprise, and he couldn't help but increase the output of chakra again, trying to struggle. Chapter 472, Difficult to Win. However, Uchiha Chen smiled strangely and said, "Is your shadow imitation only at this level? This level of shadow imitation won't work for me." The last sentence was uttered by Chen loudly, but Uchiha Chen's expression became solemn, his eyes became serious, and it was obvious that he had begun to exert his strength. The shadow that bound Chen has begun to gradually fade, and as Chen gradually exerted his strength, his hands were gradually able to move briefly. Hey! The powerful power in Chen's body continued to burst out, and his body gradually trembled with the transmission of power. It was obvious that this was a sign that the shadow imitation technique was about to fail. Not good. Nara Shikahisa shouted, "Quick! Ninjutsu Shadow Strangulation." While Shikahisa was performing ninjutsu, Yamanaka Kaiichi and Akito Dingza looked at each other and nodded silently. Ninjutsu's partial doubling technique. Ninjutsu mind transfer technique. Yamanaka Hayi once again felt the influence of the terrifying power in Chen's body, and blood spurted out when his throat itched, but he forcibly held back. After delaying Chen for a while, Chen's resistance stopped for a moment, and Nara Shikahisa's shadow strangulation technique was further released. Countless black shadows climbed up Chen's body, and the hands that bound him were pinched around Chen's neck. Then Chu Daozuo's big hand also slammed down on Uchiha Chen's head. Boom! Chu Daozuo's big hand slammed down, bringing up the dust in the sky. After he succeeded, Chu Daozuo slowly retracted his hand. Seeing this scene, Shigeru Hatake couldn't help but exclaim, as expected of Konoha pigs, deer and butterflies, this kind of seamless cooperation is so wonderful. This time the main attacker as Chu Daozuo reached out and touched the back of his head and said embarrassedly, "Where, you have won the prize. Is it resolved?" The four of them took a deep look at Chen Uchiha who had never appeared in the dust. Suddenly their eyes changed, and they jumped a step behind them vigilantly to make a fighting posture. "Isn't this solved? What a monster!" Cough cough. Although Chen, who came out of the yellow sand in the sky, can't be said to be disgraced, he is almost the same. Although he was not injured, he seemed to roll in the sand. "Very good. You guys completely angered me." Uchiha Chen laughed instead of anger, chakra released, and instantly shook off the sand stuck to his clothes, looking at the four of them with cold eyes. Gouda, Chu Daozuo swallowed. Duan Chen's aura was really scary. The time has come to noon, the temperature of the sun in the sky is getting higher and higher, the yellow sand in the sky is burning hot, and the temperature has become extremely hot. Looking at the immature faces in front of them, they never thought that there would be such a young powerhouse, and even pushed them into danger for a time. "What do I do now?" Chu Daoding stretched out his hand to support Haiichi Yamanaka, who was a little weak, and asked quietly next to Nara Shikaku after taking 2 steps back. Nara Shikahisa spread his hands with a helpless expression and said, "How do I know? I can't beat it. What should I do? Why don't I ask? Of course it's running." Said that Nara Shikahisa and the others have already decided to withdraw. Naive. Can you run away? Chen snorted coldly and slammed his hands on the ground. Wooden tree world is born. Countless big trees as thick as buckets rose from the bottom of the desert. In an instant, the way of the four was blocked. Although Uchiha Chen's eternal kaleidoscope could not be used for the time being, it did not prevent him from performing wood dungeon ninjutsu. Damn it. This is new done. How is it possible? Hatake Shigeru suddenly reacted and secretly said, in fact, they should not have escaped before, but took advantage of the opportunity, and the four of them seized the opportunity before Chen didn't react. Get a head start so they can have any hope of winning. But a wise man must be at a loss. He never imagined that Chen would actually be able to perform the wooden ninjutsu that only the first Hokage possessed. Moreover, Nara Shikahisa, who always thought about the technique of flying the god of thunder, forgot that there was actually one person on their side who was as fast as the technique of flying the god of thunder, and that was Shigeru Hagi's teleportation technique. The instant body technique alone may not be able to reach the realm of flying thunder god, but if it is combined with his swordsmanship, in a sense, the power is actually much stronger than flying thunder god's technique, just like Shigeru Hatake before. The speed of Shuo's sword-drawing technique was so fast that it was impossible for Chen to use the Flying Thunder God's technique in Blur. If you give it a try, there may be hope, but they have already started to run away. Then I'm sorry, Chen's Mudden will teach you how to be a human being in minutes. This guy, how come there are so many trump cards in his hand? Nara Shikahisa said with a wry smile. First it was Shanyan, and then it was Fei Lei Shen, and now there is another Mudun. Now if you say that Uchiha Chen has nothing to do with Konoha, he won't believe it if you kill him. There must be one or several high-level support of Konoha behind Chen. Otherwise, there is absolutely no way to collect so many secrets that Konoha does not pass on. Whether it is Sharingan Fei Lei Shen or Mudun, the secret level is the same. Then the same height. This is still Nara Shikahisa and the others who did not know that someone was studying the first-generation cells. They simply thought that Chen might be an orphan of the Chiyo clan, but then they thought about it and gave up this guess. There are too many coincidences, and there is even writing the existence of Wheel Eyes. It seems that there are many secrets in the village that we don't know. Nara Shikahisa pointedly said. Hatake Shigeru raised his eyebrows. As the minister of Konoha Anbu, he also knew something about the dark world, but it was not convenient to explain it here, and it was not suitable to tell them. Hatake Shigeru nodded, then said to them, "This is the end of the matter, it is impossible for the four of us to escape, and now you are running away, I will stop him here, remember bring the information to the village." No, Nara Shikahisa immediately rejected Hagi Shigeru's proposal. Master Shigeru, you are the commander of the front of the country of the wind, how can you keep you in the back? The three of us will cover you, please rush out quickly go. Hatake Shigeru gave Nara Shikaku a deep look, then shook his head slowly. He held the blade of white fang around his waist with one hand and said lightly, "Because I am the commander-in-chief, I have to let me stay to block him, you just need to run away quickly. With my strength, it is not so easy for him to keep me." Chapter 473, Escape. But, only you are the commander-in-chief of the front. Okay, don't talk about it anymore. Lu Ju was interrupted by Hatake Shigeru before he could finish his words. He said decisively in one breath, "I am the commander-in-chief, so I will decide. You three hurry up and leave it for me. Come and fix it, this is the order." Nara Shikahisa pursed his lips and gave Hagi Shigeru a deep look. With his IQ, how could he not see that Hagi Shigeru wanted to sacrifice himself to make the three of them happy? If Hatake Shigeru could deal with Uchiha Tatsuya, he wouldn't have been so embarrassed by Chen before. Obviously, Hatake Shigeru couldn't deal with Uchiha Tatsuya. Although Nara Shikaku didn't know that Uchiha Chen was the guy who jumped out of the crack in the stone, this didn't prevent Shikaku from affirming his strength. Nara Shikahisa took a deep breath and sighed, "Sir Shigeru, no. Lord Commander, you." Thousands of words turned into a long sigh. Even though Nara Shikahisa had 1,000 words to say at this moment, Time did not allow him to speak. Take care. All the words that should be said were finally condensed into such a short take care. After releasing the signal bomb to indicate that there is a strong enemy here, the three of Nara Shikahisa turned around and ran. Hatake Shigeru clenched his teeth and followed behind them, severing the trees that wanted to intercept them with his sharp white teeth from time to time. However, the speed with which Hatake Shigeru swung the sword was far from the speed at which the tree branches reconvened, and the road for the four of them to retreat suddenly came to a deadlock. Seeing the speed of the few people moving so slowly, Hatake Shigeru sighed secretly, as expected of the mutton used by the first generation, and then stood up and said solemnly to the three of Nara Shikahisa, "It can't go on like this, I use swordsmanship. Open the way, you must remember to follow me closely." The three of Nara Shikahisa also nodded solemnly. Seeing that, Hatake Shigeru stood at the front of the team, put the blade of white fang on his waist again, slowly closed his eyes, and mobilized his body. The only remaining chakra, gradually, even the scabbard of Hatake Shigeru, brought a gleaming white light. He gently pulled out a section of the blade of white fang, and immediately, whether it was the chakra circulating in Shigeru Hatake's body or the white light on the scabbard, they all condensed on the blade along the section he stretched. It didn't take long for Hatake Shigeru to turn into that unpretentious person again, and the white light that was shining on his scabbard could no longer be seen. White-toothed swordsmanship is really broken. Hatake Shigeru took out his knife and waved it towards the front position suddenly, and all the gleaming white light that was swirling around his body suddenly swung out with Hatake Shigeru's knife, and suddenly turned into a half-moon-shaped sword light in front of him. The continuously extending tree stalks shattered as if they were shattered when they came into contact with the sword light. "Let's go." Hagi Shigeru, who had used this move with a serious lack of chakra, gasped and yelled at the three behind him. A fish that slips through the net. Nara Shikamaru and Akihito Dingza understood each other, and the two set up Yamanaka Kai and moved forward again and again. The three followed behind Hatake Shigeru and took out detonating charms, and from time to time they threw them at the trees that had been cleaned by Hatake Shigeru in the past, preventing them from regenerating quickly. "Escape, escape, let's see how far you can escape." Uchiha Tatsuya, who hid his body in the big tree, looked blankly at the four who escaped. He was not worried in his heart. If birthday is so easy to escape, then the first generation of Hokage Senju Hashirama would not be so easy to lay down this illustrious name. Sure enough, although the four people who kept advancing were already at the fastest speed, the speed of tree regeneration was still far faster than their cleaning speed. The four of them only rushed forward 50 meters, and once again came to a deadlock because of the disappearance of the sword light. Seeing that there was still less than 20 meters to go, the unwilling Hagi Shigeru was about to take out the military ration pill and take it again, but was stopped by Nara Shikaku. "Master Maoshuo, please wait a minute. You have already taken the military ration pill before, and if you take it again, it will definitely leave sequelae and damage your body." Hatake Shigeru pushed Nara Shikaku's hand away, shook his head and swallowed the ration pill, panting, "What have I never experienced in my life? The betrayal of my teammates, the suspicions of the villagers, which one is not better than the others? The sequelae of the Bingliang pills are even bigger. I can survive those. What are the sequelae of the mere Bingliang pills? Haven't eaten enough before." Quote. Without taking care of Nara Shikisa, Hatake Shigeru began to slowly extract the chakra from his body with the help of the effect of Bingliang. You must know that Bingliang pills cannot be eaten too much. One is the body's digestive function for Bingliang pills, and the second is that Bingliang pills are taken repeatedly within a day. If you take it repeatedly, the effect will be weakened. After Hatake Shigeru swallowed several military ration pills, the chakra in his body only reluctantly recovered about 1/3, but it was a little reluctant to release it again. "Hee, you are running away. I see where you can escape without chakra." It turns out that the birth of the tree world is not only trapping Nara Shikahisa and others here, but also absorbs the chakra of the four of them unknowingly, which is why Hatake Shigeru so quickly has no chakra. Originally, the Hatake family had a small amount of chakra, and after many battles, the amount of chakra was even more pitiful. Now in the trapped formation of the birth of the tree world, their chakra is being absorbed by Chen all the time. Uchiha Chen, who is hidden behind the big tree, doesn't mind watching them die because of the overdraft of chakra. After all, he still cares a little about what Hatake Shigeru said, that he doesn't have the heart of a strong man. What exactly does he mean? Uchiha Chen hid in the big tree, squinting and looking at Shigeru Hatake, who was still struggling in front of him. I don't know why he said that he was not a strong man. Heart, although this matter is a trivial matter, it always echoes in his mind when he hears it in Chen's ears. At this time, Chen understands that he always cares about this matter. Who cares about him? It's enough to have this strength, the heart of a strong man or something. If you have strength, you will come. Uchiha Chen chuckled and put all the unrealistic thoughts in his heart behind him. Once again looked at the four who escaped. Chapter 474, that's it. Looking at the four Narashikahisa who were trying to escape, Uchiha Chen sneered. If the first generation of wood escape ninjutsu was so easy to escape, then it would not be called an immortal art to calm the troubled world. Although it was said that Narashikaku and the others were very close to escaping from the tree world, but this little distance was like a moat, separated between Narashikaku and the others and the yellow sand in the sky. Uchiha Chen pouted, although he had stopped chasing, but he did not mean to let the four people go so easily. The hands began to seal, and the chakra in the body began to increase the amount of transportation. Wood escape thorns killing technique. From this moment on, the rattan that flew from around Narashikisa and the other four became as hard as steel. At this moment, the ordinary detonating talisman no longer worked. Not only that, but even the sword of Hatake Shigeru. Gradually I started to cut down those trees. You must know that this is a short chakra sword handed down from the Hatake family. When it was forged, countless precious metal materials were used. It was supposed to cut iron like mud, but it couldn't even chop down tree branches. You have to be vigilant, the enemy is about to launch an attack, this may be our only chance. Hatake Shigeru took out his white fanged blade, chopped off a tree with all his strength, and then moved towards Nara, who was holding Yamanaka Kaiichi behind him. Lu Ju and Chu Doubting Zu said solemnly. The two nodded and clamped Kaiichi Yamanaka hard. As qualified ninjas, they all understood what they should do at this time. All they had to do was to follow behind Hagi Shigeru and help Hagi Shigeru complete the assistance mission, and only in this way can there be a chance to escape. At this moment, they have sent out the signal flare. It is reasonable to say that they should wait for rescue after the signal flare is issued, but the signal flare they sent is to evacuate the place as soon as possible, which means that from the moment they send the signal flare, it means that there is no rescue behind them. Everything is up to them. If there is no other means for the four people who are isolated and helpless, they may be forced to stay here by Uchiha Chen. Be careful, give me 3 minutes. Hatake Shigeru took a deep breath. Now that things have come, he has to go all out and even overdraw his potential to fight against his vitality. When he finished saying this, he sat down with his legs crossed, closed his eyes and started to meditate. Although the three of Narashigurhisa didn't know why Hatake Shigeru had not meditated before and now started meditating, the three of them wisely did not ask, but looked at each other and nodded understandingly. Surrounded by Hatake Shigeru in the middle, the three held kunai while sweeping away the infestation of the tree sticks and guarding against Uchiha Chen's sneak attack. Soon, the three people, who were already physically weak, were gradually unable to support under the siege of the enhanced version of the tree, and the chakra in the body began to become stretched. Is this not going to work? Uchiha Chen, who was hidden in the big tree, gave the four people a boring look, as if he was looking at dead people. I originally thought that the team with Hatake Shigeru and Anuka Butterfly could last longer, but it turned out to be this way, it's boring. Uchiha Chen curled his lips. He overestimated the combat effectiveness of Hatake Shigeru and Zuludi. Although they said that their cooperation could make Chen embarrassed for a while, it did not make him feel a fatal threat. However, he didn't think about it. This battle Chen not only exposed the writing wheel eye, but also exposed Fei Lei Shen and Mu Dun, and even used the blur. It can be said that except for the 10-tailed person Zuli and the kaleidoscope, he has all the bright lights. The whole cards on the face have been exposed, and that's how the four of them were barely stopped. I have to say that after losing the pupil technique, Chen's combat effectiveness has indeed dropped a lot. Compared with when he had pupil technique, Chen couldn't find his position in this battle at all. Eternal the kaleidoscope and the Eye of Reincarnation are really too great for him. Uchiha Chen made a seal with his hands, and he had already planned to end this meaningless game of cat and mouse. In the tree world that seemed to be very anxious, all the attacking trees couldn't help but startled at the same time, and then slowly retreated to the back. This gave the three people who were almost unable to hold on to take a breather. However, things were not so simple. Sure enough, after the short period of peace, a more violent impact than before rushed towards the three of Nara Shikahisa. Fortunately, the three of them did not relax their vigilance, but carefully guarded Hitaki Shigeru's body while resting. At this time, they had swallowed the third military ration pill, and their body organs had gradually begun to show resistance. Medicinal properties: the chakra recovered by taking Bingliang pills this time is obviously much less than before. However, there is no way. It is only 1 minute and 50 seconds after 3 minutes. If necessary, they may continue to take the military ration pills. Damn! Chu Doubtingzhou gritted his teeth and smashed the military ration pill in his mouth, letting the spicy medicinal properties spread to the meridians throughout his body along his esophagus. When will this be ahead? He once again threw out a shuriken with a detonating talisman, and Yamanaka Kaiichi slightly blocked the heat wave caused by the explosion of the detonating talisman. At this moment, he felt miserable in his heart. Not only because of the physical injury, but also because of the physical overdraft. The double physical and mental injuries made Yamanaka Kaiichi's chakra consumption much faster than usual. Gradually, the chakra recovered by Yamanaka Kaiichi taking the third ration pill also began to dry up slowly. At this time, those who couldn't break down the trees for a long time seemed to be conscious, and began to slowly start work in the direction of Yamanaka Kaiichi, trying to open a breakthrough. However, with the desperate cooperation of Nara Shikahisa and Akihito Dingza, he still managed to survive without any risk. Thank you. Yamanaka Haiyi took a deep breath, took out the military ration pill and swallowed it, and began to take the opportunity to restore the chakra in his body. Would escape tree bound for eternal burial. Uchiha Chen, who has been unable to attack for a long time, has long been impatient. Seeing that the three of them are still chatting, the runaway Uchiha Chen directly zoomed in. All the trees began to move closer to the four of them, and the yellow sand desert on the ground began to gradually sink. Obviously, Chen wants to bury them all here and sleep in the land of wind. Damn, dangerous. Nara Shikaku roared. I should have thought long ago. How could I not know about the first generation's ultimate move if I know how to do it? It's all my fault, it's all mine wrong. I'm sorry, Ding Zuohai, I have betrayed your trust in me. Chapter 475, Fairy Mode. What to say to live up to me. I didn't formulate the most perfect tactics, and I couldn't bring you back safely. Isn't this a betrayal of your trust? Are you kidding me? After all these years, are we still sharing yours and mine? Chu Doubtingzhou slapped Nara Shikuji with a slap on the head. It is estimated that Chu Doubtingzhou was the only one who could be so optimistic before his death. You guys. Lu Ju looked at the two with a moved face. Adversity shows true love. Only in times of crisis can the relationship stand the test. At this time, the ground had begun to collapse, but the three of them remained motionless. At this time, it was too late to resist, and they were powerless to return to the sky. It's a pity Haiyi, he has already agreed to go back and get married as soon as this war is over, alas. Chu Daodingzhou sighed deeply. However, the speaker was unintentional and the listener was intentional. Uchiha Chen suddenly reacted when he heard the word marriage. This was at least 20 years ago. At this time, Yamanaka Haiichi was not married, which means that Ino was still married. If he was not born, if he killed Kaiichi Yamanaka at this time, maybe according to the causal relationship of time, the Ino of later generations would disappear accordingly. Thinking of this, Uchiha Chen couldn't help but leave a cold sweat on his forehead. He was too proud before, and he didn't even think of such a crucial point. Although he still hasn't figured out what happened in this world, why should it be in World War II? White Fang, who died at that time, has survived to this day, but anyway, Ino was someone he cared about, so how could he let Ino disappear? Chen sighed lightly, his face and his hands were immoral. Tuden earth moves the core. The sand that had already begun to collapse gradually stopped flowing, and the ground that was originally in a hollow has now condensed a layer of huge horizontal clods, preventing the tendency of the sand to collapse. Immediately, the wooden chakra in Chen's body began to mobilize, and the roots of the big tree began to grow frantically, gradually filling the void in the ground, stabilizing the tree's eternal burial this time. After wiping the sweat that didn't exist on his forehead, Chen's face was ugly. It was unbearable. If Ino was already born, it would be good, then Yamanaka High didn't have a big impact on whether he killed him or not. The key is that he is not born now. For the sake of his future daughter-in-law, Chen can only protect his father-in-law first. Chen has stopped the output of chakra, and the big trees in the tree world have also stopped their activities at this moment, turning into big trees full of vitality. Just when Chen smiled and was about to escape into the void, Hitaki Shigeru, who had closed his eyes, suddenly opened his eyes. At this time, great changes have taken place on his body. His pupils have become scarlet, and the corners of his eyes to the eyebrows are painted with mysterious red oil. The chakra in his body has become full again, even the nature of chakra has also changed. He stood up, his whole body was shocked, and the blade of White Fang pulled out from his waist and began to spin, and he swung it out. Scoff. A sword light centered on Hitaki Shigeru and began to spread out around. Yin Ying's sword glow with white light began to tear the trees slowly at a strange speed, but the seemingly slow sword light brought down all the trees in the tree world released by Chen in the blink of an eye. Cut off. And Daomang castrated unabated, until it destroyed an unknown number of dunes in the distance, and gradually disappeared between this world. The collapse of the tree revealed the figure of Uchiha Chen. At this time, Hitaki Shigeru was holding the blade of White Fang, standing in front of Nara Shikisa and the three of them, looking at Chen Uchiha calmly, and said to the three behind him, "Sorry, it's a little late, I almost didn't catch up." Nara Shikaku and the other three did not know what happened, but seeing that Hitaki Shigeru had woken up at this moment, and he seemed to be much stronger than before, he could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. "Sir Shigeru, you're welcome, that's what we should do, as long as we can." Although Nara Shikisa and the others didn't know what happened to Hitaki Shigeru, but Uchiha Chen knew that, seeing that his aura had changed, he was staring at his own Hagi Shigeru with a warlike expression. "There was a storm in my heart." Immortal mode. Uchiha Chen frowned. Just by looking at the mysterious oil paint in the corner of Hitaki Shigeru's eyes and Chakrachan's transformation in his body, he could conclude that Hitaki Shigeru must have entered the state of fairy mode at this moment. Only the immortal mode will change the momentum of people. Hagi Shigeru has a fairy mode. It shouldn't be, Uchiha Chen murmured to himself. He felt more and more that this era was weird. At first, Hitaki Shigeru didn't die, and even appeared on the battlefield of the Wind Country. After a while, Hitaki Shigeru actually turned on the immortal mode, while the others it looked natural. Damn it, what the hell is going on here? Why a person who should have died in the Second Ninja World War, why has been active on the battlefield of the Third Ninja World War? This is the most incomprehensible to Chen. Could it be that Hitaki Shigeru didn't commit suicide? Suddenly Chen's eyes lit up, perhaps because of the reason he came to this era, and due to a combination of circumstances, Hitaki Shigeru did not commit suicide, which is not justified, and the immortal the pattern is really too much. As we all know, if you want to learn the immortal mode, you can only go to the three holy places. You must know that even the six-path immortals learned the immortal mode under the toad immortal of Miaomu Mountain, one of the three holy places. In addition to these 3 holy places, other psychic beast gathering places do not have the immortal mode to learn. This is what Chen learned after asking his own psychic beast Lu Daowang, and it is precisely why Chen's immortal art can only be used skillfully after becoming a 10-tailed man. In the world where I have lived for more than 10 years, the common sense that I am familiar with, suddenly someone comes over and tells you that the previous ones are all false, and anyone will feel unhappy in their hearts. Chapter 476, The Real Swordsmanship. Chen pursed his chin and looked at the oil paint in the corner of Hatake Shigeru's eyes, which was vaguely similar to the immortal model of the first Hokage. It seems that this era is not simple, and there may be some hidden history. I may need to understand this era well. Uchiha Chen grinned. But he said that after Hatake Shigeru used the immortal mode, the power in his body changed dramatically. He gave Chen Uchiha a provocative look and said, "Now, we can move on to the next round." Curling his lips, Uchiha Chen ignored Hagi Shigeru's provocation. He is not a fighting maniac, especially now that Chen is still injured, and the pupil power of his eyes has not recovered. He will still suffer more or less against Hatake Shigeru, who has cast the immortal mode. Originally, his speed was fast, and after blessing the immortal mode, he was able to cause damage to Chen. It just so happened that Chen was still worried about whether to let them go straight away, or let them escape without leaving a trace. Now that he has Hatake Shigeru's immortal mode, he has a good excuse. He left because he was afraid of Hatake Shigeru's power. This is a good reason, Chen secretly thought to himself. Hatake Shigeru watched Uchiha Chen quietly for a long time, and seeing that he didn't react at all, he couldn't help frowning, and said, "Why, are you afraid?" Chen still didn't speak, but looked at Hatake Shigeru with a calm expression on his face. He frowned and didn't wait for Chen's answer any longer, but clapped the white fang blade in his hand, stomped his legs and activated the teleportation technique, and the whole person suddenly appeared in front of Chen like a teleportation. White-toothed swordsmanship chases teeth. White Fang's knife, surrounded by blue and purple lightning, stabbed Chen's lower abdomen violently. Crack! As soon as Chen's characteristic Kuukai came into contact with Baya's knife, he was held up, and then twisted so hard that Kuu's sharp edge was scraped off by Baya's knife. It must be known that this characteristic Kuu has been carefully crafted by the system, and the degree of tenacity is sky-defying, otherwise Chen would not regard it as an important combat weapon. It was obvious that there was nothing he could do about Hatake Shigeru with this trait of Kunai again. Chen kicked Hatake Shigeru and pulled the distance between the two. He smiled helplessly and said, "I didn't want to take out this knife, but you forced me." Said, Chen from the system space slowly pulled out the ominous blade of the streamer star meteorite knife. But what surprised Chen was that the ominous aura that had been circulating in the body of the streamer star meteorite knife suddenly dissipated in the blink of an eye. When Chen reacted, there was only a trace of the ghostly aura on the streamer star meteorite knife. If Chen didn't react in time and seal the last trace of the ghostly aura with the sealing technique, maybe the handle knife will become again without any ghostly energy. System, what's going on? Holding the meteorite knife horizontally, Chen began to call the system without a trace. Ding! Due to the retrogression of time and the advance of the times, all the ghosts and evil spirits have returned to the state of condensation, so they will dissipate. Then what the hell is this Hatake Shigeru? Not only not dead, but also immortal. Could it be that he never died? The host-era Hatake Shigeru is 100% dead. As for why Hatake Shigeru did not die in this era, the system can't answer for the time being. We can only say that the era the host came to is not as simple as you think. You will understand the meaning of this sentence when you see it more. Quote. Inexplicable. Chen has felt very inexplicable since entering the dragon vein. Time is long, Zulong, Hatake Shigeru, his own sword, not only these, but now even the system has become inexplicable. The corners of Uchiha Chen's mouth twitched, and he couldn't help but feel a little frightened about his life in this era. However, this is not the time for desertion. Just when Chen was communicating with the system, Hatake Shigeru had already bullied him, waving the short white-toothed knife in his hand, especially at Chen's throat, cervical spine, lungs, liver, and neck. Arteries, subclavian arteries, kidneys, and heart were punctured in 8 positions. The knife is straight to the point, the knife is fatal. This is. Uchiha Chen, who had come to his senses, couldn't help but be shocked when he saw the familiar attacking tendency of Hatake Shigeru. This is the silent assassination technique of the Fog Ninja. Uchiha Chen's eyes lit up. Although he has not experienced the silent assassination technique of the Fog Ninja, this does not prevent him from understanding this technique. He was famous in Hokage, and even has the assassination technique circulating in the Anbu of various villages. I never thought that Chen would actually see it in the hands of Hatake Shigeru. The assassination technique, which was originally performed perfectly in conjunction with the hidden mist technique, turned into a fierce short sword technique in the hands of Hatake Shigeru. This kind of strange rhythm of the move, and the position of this strange move, all of them. Rang Chen is not used to it. Chuck. Chen turned from the defensive to the offensive after the attack of Hagi Shigeru with a knife, and slashed at Hagi Shigeru with a single knife. Now, the meteorite meteor knife, which has no ghostly power, can not only summon meteorites in Chen's hands, the only thing left is sharpness and tenacity. Originally, Chen was bound to get a move, but he didn't expect that Hatake Shigeru could react within the time limit, holding the knife on the edge of Chen's knife. What surprised Chen was that after he took his own heavy split abruptly, Shigeru Hatake didn't move like a rock, he didn't take half a step back, and he didn't leave any holes for Chen to take advantage of it. However, at this time, Hatake Shigeru slanted to the side, and his short knife followed Chen's blade and started to swipe across the blade, and then from the blade to the handle, the blade of White Fang emitted violent friction when it crossed and rubbed with the meteorite knife. Sound like a scream. However, neither Tatsu nor Hatake Shigeru was disturbed by this external force. At this moment, the two of them had already entered a mysterious realm of sword-fighting duel. Hatake Shigeru came to defend. The two of you come and go, no one takes advantage of the other, and no one is sure that they will have the confidence to win the opponent in this sword fight. That's it. After the last collision, Hatake Shigeru swayed Kaichen's streamer star. He stood sideways, the blade of White Fang pointed diagonally at the ground, and looked at Chen Uchiha with cold eyes. And after being swayed by Hagi Shigeru with a knife, Chen also instantly regained his clarity and looked at Hagi Shigeru with a bad look. Chapter 477, The Second Encounter with White Fang. The silent assassination technique in Misten Village is actually not difficult to learn. It is nothing more than a key attack on the 8 parts of the throat, cervical spine, lung, liver, carotid artery, subclavian artery, kidney, and heart. This is not difficult at all, It's how to master silent assassination. You must know that even the ninjas of Mist Ninja Village need to rely on the technique of fog shadows to be able to perfectly unleash the power of silent assassination, and the representative of this is the master of the beheading sword, the owner of the beheading sword. It was him, and he had to rely on the technique of fog and shadow to be able to truly achieve silent assassination. But now Hagi Shigeru has integrated the silent assassination technique of Karenin Village into his own swordsmanship, and it has become his real thing, instead of just learning rigidly like others, only learning stiff imitation, unable to grasp the essence of silent assassination. And every attack of Hatake Shigeru, every temptation has a deep meaning, and even every attack he makes is leading Chen in which direction he will go next. Chen has completely fallen into him among the routines. This is why Uchiha Chen was shocked. I didn't expect that you have already practiced swordsmanship to such a level. Uchiha Chen slapped the streamer meteorite knife in his hand. After a series of swordsmanship duels just now, Rao Shichen's endurance was astonishing and his strength was amazing. At this moment, his tiger's mouth started to feel a little numb too. Under the blessing of the immortal mode, Hatake Shigeru, who was originally a super shadow level strength, waited until he was further strengthened, and faintly even stepped out of the shackles of that step, not to mention under Hatake Shigeru's tricky attack. Every time Chen swung the sword, it was very uncomfortable, and every time he had to respond to Hatake Shigeru's attack with greater strength, it was often twice the result with half the effort. Hatake Shigeru didn't say a word. He knew that his immortal mode wouldn't last long. 1 second more time in front of him was 1 second more opportunity to attack. He inadvertently glanced at the three of Nara Shikahisa and saw that they were still in the original position. To restore chakra could not help but secretly anxious. These guys don't think I can maintain this state forever. Hatake Shigeru almost laughed angrily. At this time, Nara Shikaku and Akito Dingza should take Yamanaka Kaiichi and leave first. Only they left Hagi Shigeru and he himself was able to retreat with the blessing of the immortal mode. His own family knows his own affairs. Don't look at it as if Hagi Shigeru has the upper hand, but Shigeru Hagi knows very well that the guy in front of him is not using his full strength. Still affirmed. The battle has continued until now, and Hatake Shigeru can still feel the faint sense of oppression coming from Chen, and even he has not even breathed until now, and it seems that the chakra is still very full. As the minister of Konoha Anbu, he is not only familiar with assassination techniques, but also very well aware of the skills of observing words. He is very clear that Uchiha Chen is not trying to be tough, but is really full of chakra and physical strength. Frowning slightly, Hatake Shigeru's feet were windy, and he once again bullied him into the second round of sword fighting with Chen. The two of you come and go, and the vertical and horizontal have been stalemate for many times, but Hatake Shigeru is very clear in his heart that he can't go on like this. If it drags on further, Sand Ninja is likely to bring a large army to encircle and suppress it. At that time, Shigeru Hatake, who was severely lacking in physical strength and chakra, would not be able to escort the three of Shikisa back to the base camp. More importantly, Shigeru Hatake would never be captured by Sand Shinobi. If he was used as a battlefield if the commander-in-chief is captured, then there is really only one way to apologize. After secretly estimating his remaining natural energy in his heart, Shigeru Hatake narrowed his eyes. He was already thinking about how to retreat. The most important thing was how to get the three guys behind him first. Shaking his head helplessly, he once again set his eyes on Uchiha Chen. Because it was in his stun time, Chen had already broken through the blockade of his swordsmanship and started a counterattack. Just now, Hatake Shigeru was almost stabbed by Chen. If you can't protect yourself, you still need to care about others. Take care of yourself first. The streamer star meteorite knife in Chen's hand turned into a shock, and stabbed Shigeru Hatake obliquely. At the same time, Chen made a seal with one hand and was ready to start a formal counterattack. Thunder escaped thousand birds flow. The long-lost feeling of being covered with thunder and lightning strikes again. Since Uchiha Chen got the meteorite knife and activated the power of ghosts in the knife, he has rarely used Chidori Ryu as his trump card for his swordsmanship. Now that the power of ghosts has disappeared inexplicably, Chen has to once again open up the code of lightning and incarnate as the controller of lightning. The countless screaming and screaming birds seem to be the gods of death. Chen's streamer star pierced forward. Seeing that the tip of the blade had already pierced Hatake Shigeru's joint and vest, he only needed to go a little further forward. The distance of a millimeter would be enough to pierce Hagi Shigeru's skin and pierce his internal organs. It's a pity that Hatake Shigeru suddenly woke up at this time, and the blade of White Fang stabbed from bottom to top at a strange angle, just hit Chen's meteor knife. The tip of the knife and the tip of the knife were facing each other, sending out a piercing sound like, ding bell. It is still Hagi Shigeru's sword skill that is superior, and at this critical moment, he reacted in time to resist Tatsu's inevitable attack. You still have the mind to take care of others when you are fighting. Do you think your life is not long enough? Uchiha Tatsuya missed a hit but was not frustrated, but mocked with a cold face, trying to increase Hatake Shigeru a little psychological pressure. However, Hatake Shigeru didn't take this set at all, and instead mocked. For a guy like you who doesn't even have the heart of a strong man and can't really control his own power, even if I close one eye, I won't fail. I am not ashamed. Chen snorted coldly, and the streamer star meteorite in his hand faintly glowed red. Chen knew that this was the special effect of this knife. When attacking the enemy, he could use the power of the knife to summon meteorites to attack the enemy. Attack! Looking at this knife, Chen's face showed a half-smile expression, and he seemed to have come up with an excellent idea. Let's see how you can escape this time. Chen's eyes flashed, and the streamer star in his hand pointed at Shigeru Hatake again, but he didn't rush up this time. 478th, Immortal White Tooth Forbidden Art 7 stars Yaohua. The streamer star pointed at Shigeru Hatake, but Chen did not rush up. He held the knife in one hand and pointed to the sky with the other. There seems to be a mysterious force on the knife in the dark, and the hand that holds the handle of the knife along Chen has been flowing to the other hand that stretches out to the sky. A gravitational force different from Vientiantianian spread out from Chen's hand. However, under this gravitational force, Hatake Shigeru and others were not affected at all, but this gravitational force was real, and it wasn't. For a long time, there was a faint roar of thunder in the sky. Taking advantage of this moment, Hatake Shigeru shouted loudly, awakening the three of Nara Shikahisa, and made a gesture with his back to them, implying that they should evacuate first. Knowing that they and others could only be a burden to stay, the three of Nara Shikahisa resolutely chose to retreat reflexively. This time is not the time to say that the will of fire will not abandon or give up. With their current state, even if you go up, you can only go to deliver food. It is better to take the opportunity to escape. This is already the biggest support for Hatake Shigeru. At least when he evacuates, Hatake Shigeru won't have to take care of the three of them. The likelihood of a safe evacuation also becomes higher. While Uchiha Chen was holding back his big move, Hatake Shigeru took out a few shuriken from his ninja bag and threw them at Chen, forming a seal on his hands. Ninjutsu Shuriken Multi-Shadow Clone Technique. Ding ling dang. Several shuriken collided with each other at random, and transformed into a large dense shuriken, rushing towards Uchiha Chen as if it were raining. Facing the dense shuriken multi-shadow avatar technique, Chen didn't even take half a step back with his legs. The rain-like shuriken stopped 50 centimeters away from Chen, as if it had hit a barrier or something. Ping Bell and Pong, all fell under Chen's feet. It's useless. You strong man with the heart of a strong man, enjoy the great gift I have prepared for you. Uchiha Chen's eyes widened, and the sarcasm on his face could not be concealed. He looked at Hatake Shigeru with a smile, but the movements in his hands did not delay at all. Compared with the confident Uchiha Chen, Hatake Shigeru felt a little worried. His sixth sense told him that if he didn't leave at this moment, he would probably face the biggest crisis he had ever encountered in his life. But his body has already been locked by Uchiha Chen. If he has any signs of escaping at this time, I believe that Chen will definitely stop him. Hagi Shigeru is not 100% sure that he can escape from Chen, especially now that there are three people behind him. If he escapes, then Nara Shigurhisa and the others will definitely become tools for Uchiha Chen to vent his anger. Hagi Shigeru, the Tao of Ninja, would never allow him to do such a thing by himself. He inserted the blade of White Fang into the scabbard with his backhand, sat down cross-legged and placed the sword between his legs. Hatake Shigeru quietly recovered his physical condition. Since you can't walk away, you can only face it with the best mental state. Chen showed a satisfied smile. He raised his head and looked at the sky. At this time, he could faintly feel that something was echoing with him. At this moment, the originally clear sky suddenly shook a little, as if a painting was about to be torn apart, and even the temperature of the sun could not be felt faintly. It was originally in the desert with the scorching sun, but Shigeru Hatake could not feel the heat at all at this moment. Go ahead. Flower Star Meteorite Knife Pseudo Sky Obstruction Star. Uchiha shouted loudly and waved Shishin's hand down. The vibration in the sky became bigger and bigger, and suddenly a huge shadow blocked the ground. Hatake Shigeru raised his eyes. Astonishingly, the originally picturesque still sky seemed to be punctured by someone, and a meteorite appeared from the hole. My God, what is this? Chu Doubtingzhou looked back in horror, as if he saw something impossible. What's wrong? Seeing Ding Zuo stop, Lu Ju subconsciously turned his head and asked, but this turning back made him see an unforgettable scene in his life. What? It's over. Chu Doubtingzo simply sat on the ground. This is not something that human power can resist. What do I do now? Hai Yi, the only one who remained calm, turned his head to look at Lu Ju, as if waiting for him to give an answer. There's really no way out now. Lu Ju grinned helplessly and smiled bitterly. He sighed and said, faced with this situation, no matter how high your IQ is, you can't do anything. The hot meteorite continued to roar and hit the ground at an unimaginable speed. It was not until now that Hitaki Shigeru understood what the ultimate move he was talking about was Uchiha Chen. He stood up slowly and looked at Chen Uchiha calmly. Is this your strongest attack? Chen pouted his lips in disdain. Although he still admired Hitaki Shigeru, he couldn't get used to Hitaki Shigeru's pretentious fan. Something unwarranted must be forged. It's fine to let him suffer a little at this time. Anyway, this meteorite is under Chen's control. As long as he grasps it well at the last minute, Chen can ensure that the fall of the meteorite will not affect his future father-in-law. I have the momentum, but I still don't have the heart of a strong man. Hitaki Shigeru smiled lightly, stood up with the knife in his left hand, his eyes narrowed, and looked at Chen Uchiha with a serious face. I'll tell you something today. It's called the true heart of the strong. White Fang put the knife on his waist, and all the momentum in his body suddenly disappeared. If it weren't for those still very firm eyes, Tatsuki almost thought that Hitaki Shigeru had given up. At this moment, the red eyeshadow on the corner of his eyes is getting thicker and thicker, and even begins to spread towards his cheeks. After a while, almost half of his face is covered with mysterious red patterns. However, at this time, the meteorite was about to fall, and in the blink of an eye, it broke through the atmosphere and hit Shigeru Hagi directly. And he seemed to be fully prepared at the moment, standing there holding the knife in his left hand and waiting for the meteorite to land. Time passed little by little, the meteorite landed little by little, and I could already feel the scorching breath on the meteorite. Just when Chengdu thought that Hitaki Shigeru was about to give up, Hitaki Shigeru finally got a chance. An action. I saw the blade in Shigeru Hitaki's hand emitting an ice blue light. Under the urging of chakra, the blade's tip gradually elongated until it stopped growing when it was 2 meters long. The blade turned into a 2-meter-long knife. Hitaki Shigeru has already been covered with a layer of chakra coat visible to the naked eye, which is natural energy, and Chen can clearly feel the majestic energy contained in it. He glanced at the meteorite with burning eyes, then looked at the blade of White Fang tenderly, and stroked the blade with one hand and sighed softly. Old friend, you have been with me for so many years, and I still have to rely on you today. Quote. The blade of White Fang trembled slightly, and the soft moan seemed to be responding to the feelings of Hitaki Shigeru. Looks like you're excited too. Hitaki Shigeru laughed, stomped his legs, and the wind was blowing under his feet, and he rose up into the air and headed towards the meteorite. 7 stars Yaohua, the forbidden technique of immortal white teeth. 470th 9 chapters, stop. In the surprised eyes of Chen and Nara Shikisa, who had not yet gone far, Hitaki Shigeru jumped up high, stepping on the lotus step by step, and the lotus was born step by step. I saw him holding a 3-meter-long broadsword, preempting the attack, stabbed on the meteorite before the meteorite completely landed, and then slashed one after another. In the eyes of Zachin and Nara Shikaku, Hitaki Shigeru seemed to be a figure. It turned into an illusion, and 7 Hitaki Shigeru appeared in the entire space at the same time, waving the sword, as if using the technique of shadow clone. If this was in another world, it would probably cause a lot of shock, but this is a world with avatars. In the eyes of Nara Shikahisa and the others, it seemed like 7 avatars were swung at the same time. But Chen is very clear, where could this be a clone technique? This is clearly because Hitaki Shigeru's speed was so fast that he actually left a phantom in place. Hitaki Shigeru kept moving, constantly waving the long sword in his hand, and all the phantoms were able to connect smoothly and unimpeded without the knowledge of outsiders. Immortal white teeth forbidden technique, true profound meaning, flying flowers by the moon. I saw Shigeru Hataki, who was constantly moving and flickering, suddenly stopped. At the same time, the 7 phantoms were still in motion, and then overlapped on Shigeru Hagi, layer by layer, as if a piece of the power of the portion is once again blessed within Hataki Shigeru's body. When the last phantom clone returned to Hataki Shigeru, his eyes widened, and the long knife in his hand swung out, stabbing straight in the middle of the meteorite. Time seemed to stand still at this moment. Chen's surprised eyes, Nara Shikahisa, Yamanaka Kaiichi, and Akito Dings's expressions of seeing a ghost, at this moment seemed to be still in Hataki Shigeru's eyes. He opened his mouth lightly, he said softly, "Broken." Boom. In an instant, the still picture was broken in an instant, and before the huge meteorite under Hataki Shigeru's sword could fall, it shattered into slag under Hagi Shigeru's last forbidden technique. The fiery meteorites kept falling. After being blocked by Hataki Shigeru, they no longer fell so fast, but became as fluttering as petals. However, the flaming meteorites seemed to be really like flames. Like a flower, it keeps falling. Hataki Shigeru breathed a sigh of relief, pointed his toes, and returned to the ground step by step with the debris of countless meteorites. He retracted the White Fang's blade back into the scabbard. At this moment, the originally sharp White Fang's blade had long since become riddled with holes. You must know that meteorites are not so easy to deal with. No matter how good the swordsmanship of Hataki Shigeru is, it cannot change the power of meteorites. It is very good that the blade of White Fang smashed the meteorite into pieces without breaking it into pieces. Now the blade of White Fang must be reforged, or it can only be sealed and put on the shelf, and can no longer be used as a fighting blade. Uchiha Chen looked blankly at the man who had just completed the feat in front of him. However, Chen's heart had already set off a wave of shocking waves. Is Hataki Shigeru strong, powerful? Is it strong enough to have no boundaries? No. But why was he able to break up the meteorite abruptly? Even if the pseudo-heavenly disturbing star released by the meteorite of the streamer is not as domineering and powerful as the original version, it is still not something that ordinary people can stop. Lien Chen himself, if he is not a magician, let him do the same thing as Hataki Shigeru. If he does not open the full-body Susanoo or open the wooden escape to use thousands of hands to turn into a Buddha, if so, he would not be able to reach the level of Hataki Shigeru. Chen is now the 10-tailed Manzuli. What about Hataki Shigeru? It is nothing, but it can accomplish things that are impossible at all with the blessing of the immortal mode. From Chen's point of view, this is simply a fantasy, reaching a realm that cannot be reached by human resources. How did you do it? Although he was shocked, it was only a matter of that moment. After all, with Chen's strength, if Hataki Shigeru was able to achieve this level, he could only lighten his eyes a little. That's it. How did I do it? Hataki Shigeru was stunned, originally thinking that Chen would take the opportunity to attack him. After all, after using the forbidden technique continuously, the chakra in Hataki Shigeru's body has reached the level of exhaustion, even if he at this moment, the military food pills are not used up. Seeing that Chen didn't attack but asked questions, Hataki Shigeru shook his head calmly and said, "I didn't know I could do it." Zai Chen frowned and said again before he was about to speak out, "But I believe I can do it." Hataki Shigeru's eyes were full of confidence, and his eyes were staring at Tatsuya Uchiha. Even at this moment his body is in a weak state, but his aura still shows no signs of weakening. Believe. Chen paused. Just because of believing. However, at this time, Hataki Shigeru ignored Uchiha Chen and turned his head to himself, turned his back to him and said, "Yes, I believe it." Maybe it's because Chen's origin is too mysterious. After all, the three things, Sharingan, Fei Lei Shen, and Mudun are pulled out, all of which can be relied upon to stand at the top of the ninja world, and more importantly, they all belong to Konoha. It was for this reason that Hataki Shigeru opened his mouth to explain to him. After all, Chen, who had three things at the same time, would not believe that Hataki Shigeru was killed if he said that it had nothing to do with Konoha. Therefore, Hataki Shigeru felt that it was necessary for him to correct Tatsuya's three views. "I believed that I could do it myself, so I did it." This not only requires 100% trust in my own strength, but also requires a very strong heart and a strong heart. The heart of the strong. Confident enough to overcome all difficulties, not afraid of anything, the mentality of anything. Always meet challenges, think of yourself as a strong person, and then keep learning and fighting to become stronger. I don't panic when I die. I don't get angry when I add it for no reason. Uchiha Chen suddenly muttered to himself. What? It's nothing. Chen waved his hand and opened his mouth to Hatake Shigeru as if he had lost his temper. Forget it, I don't want to fight, I'll let you go this time. Hearing Chen's words, Shigeru Hagi's body, which was still slightly tense, instantly relaxed. He let out a sigh of relief, and just wanted to say something, but when he saw that Chen had turned his back, he couldn't help opening his mouth. Chapter 480, Confusion in My Heart. After all, I still don't quite believe in Uchiha Chen's position. For the sake of this, Hatake Shigeru said that he has no obligation to help Chen get out of the dead end of this state of mind. He can point out Uchiha Chen. It's already a matter of seeing Zai Chen. There is an inextricable relationship with Konoha, and this was pointed out in advance. The clay figurine also had 3 points of anger, and was pressed and beaten by Chen holding the nose. After fighting for so long, Hatake Shigeru said that it was okay, it must be false, and he still had some resentment towards Chen. Seeing that Chen had already turned his back towards him, Hagi Shigeru had a slight movement in his heart at such a moment, but considering his own physical condition and his subordinates did not run far the three of Shikaku, Hatake Shigeru finally gave up on this tempting decision. However, what he didn't know was that when he decided to give up this opportunity and sighed and was about to leave, Chen actually showed a surprised look, but he didn't look back, but continued to walk forward. Although he was a little surprised, Hatake Shigeru's performance in Chen Kailai was all natural. Hatake Shigeru is different from the Whirlpool Naruto. Naruto is the type who has a hot brain and doesn't think about anything. Although Hatake Shigeru is the minister of Konoha Anbu, he never deliberately elevates his identity. Therefore, when making a decision, Hatake Shigeru can accurately find his position and not lose himself. At this moment, under the condition of serious lack of chakra and energy, even standing is a little unstable, let alone to sneak attack Chen. Do it yourself, Hatake Shigeru murmured in a low voice. He no longer looked at Tatsuya Uchiha, but stepped back, catching up with the three of Nara Shikuhisa step by step. Sure enough, Uchiha Chen didn't stop him when Hatake Shigeru was evacuating, and the guy in front of him was just a pitiful bastard. Like Chen, like the Uchiha family, they were all abandoned pieces by the top management of Konoha, originally from the same root. Health, why is it too urgent to fry? Chen's hand holding the knife gently loosened, and the streamer star meteorite knife gradually faded until it disappeared like ink and water imprinted between the mountains and rivers. Taking a sigh of relief, Chen stepped into the air step by step, and when he entered the system space, he could clearly feel a slight fluctuation in this space of heaven and earth. However, he is not the only one in the space at this moment, but... System, what's wrong with her? Uchiha Chen pointed at the clothes halfway through, then passed out the half-naked Xiaonan and asked the system. Because the host came to another time and space, and because there was a Xiaonan in this time and space, the souls of the two people attracted and influenced each other, and they both fell into a short sleep. After a while, Xiaonan's soul will adapt to this time and space have awakened. Chen glanced at Xiaonan, who was half-naked, and looked at the big bucket of water next to him. Chen knew in his heart that this must be the rhythm of getting dressed just after taking a shower, but he didn't expect that Chen just happened to come to this time and space. Chen covered her eyes, stretched out her hand to hug Princess Xiaonan, and when Chen's big hand touched Xiaonan's exposed skin on her outer arm and her crotch, she couldn't help sighing in her heart. However, Chen has no other evil thoughts. Although he was only an otaku in his previous life, Chen has already had Ino in his life, and he is not the kind of idiot who has a brain, and naturally he will not do anything to take advantage of others. After putting Xiaonan on the bed and covering the quilt, Chen couldn't help but tut his tongue in the chair. He didn't expect that Xiaonan would enjoy it in her space. Not only did he build the house, but he also followed suit. All living things are complete. Looking at the paper paintings carefully decorated by the bed, I have to say that Xiaonan has begun to regard this place as her home. After all, only home can make people want to make it better and more beautiful. Comfortable. At this time, Chen couldn't help but start to think of what Hatake Shigeru said to him at that time. The heart of the strong. Chen murmured softly. Hi. He scratched his head, always feeling that he was in control of something, but whenever he wanted to go deeper, that thing disappeared from his mind. What the hell is it? With one hand on his chin, the other hand played with Xiaonan's hair unconsciously. He closed his eyes and slowly replayed in his mind every word that Hatake Shigeru said to him at that time, every word. After a long time, he sighed softly. In fact, he understands the truth, but he just doesn't know how to do it. As a teenager from the Earth in the 21st century, I don't know how much bombardment of network information I have experienced, and my comprehension ability is many times stronger than that of ordinary people. But the most embarrassing thing for Chen now is that he can understand the concept of the heart of a strong man, but he has no clue on how to have the heart of a strong man. Maybe, this is life. Chen reluctantly spread his hands, as if everything in front of him was pessimistic, stood up and clapped his hands, ready to go out to meet the next wave of guests. Ding! What the host wants to know is the heart of the strong. Chen, who felt that the system had not taken the initiative to appear for a long time, couldn't help but be surprised, and then asked, do you know anything about the system? As a powerhouse system, it was originally designed to cultivate the host's strength, mentality, and self-confidence. And the most crucial of these, the powerhouse's heart, has another explanation. Chen, who had stood up, sat down slowly again, stretched out his hand and took out a bottle of pulse and poured it. Go on, I'm listening. What is a strong person? It is a person with super strength, but there are still a group of people in this world who do not have super strength, and are even born disabled, but there are still such a group of people who are called strong. Why? It's because mental issues. Speak directly to the point. Chen Wei waved his hand to interrupt the system's speech. I know all this, but it is nothing more than an optimistic attitude and a healthy attitude. Just kidding, in the previous life of Chen, I don't know how many inspirational stories I have read since childhood. Although the characters are different, the story is the same. Even Chen can already guess the end after reading the beginning. At this level, where do you need the system to explain? The point is that it's not difficult to say that the heart of the strong is difficult, but it's simple, but some people have no way to get started. To put it bluntly, it's nothing more than a question of self-confidence. If you believe in yourself, you can do it. If you even believe in your own courage, if there is none, then there is really no hope at all. Quote. Believe in yourself.